I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You have, good evening. You have in front of you a few supplementals this evening in addition to your agenda and council packet. There's a memo that I believe was prepared by our DPW director, Mr. Fordyce, regarding sidewalk repairs, which I believe he will talk about under the discussion portion of our agenda. Then I believe there is a revised PowerPoint regarding the 2017 Saline Farmers Market.
And that was left out of the packet that was reported.
Okay, and then there's a memo from Tetra Tech addressed to Mr. Gary Rubel dated February the 10th, 2017, and it relates to business item 14-134. And that was left out of your packets, and we apologize for that, that omission. So present this evening are myself, Mayor Morrow, council members Gearboss, Seo, McClellan, Mitchell, Tahar, and Dillon. From city staff, we have City Manager Campbell, Clerk Royal, Treasurer Bennett, City Superintendent Engineer Rubel, Wastewater Treatment Plant Director Skull, DPW Director Fordyce, and of course joining us at the dais is our Senior Legal Counsel, Mr. Scott Smith. The rest of you who are in the audience this evening, if you'd be so kind to sign in the back to my left, we would appreciate that. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted unless there are amendments.
So moved?
As submitted?
Correct.
Thank you. It's been moved by Dillon, seconded by McClellan to approve the agenda as submitted. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. There are no absences this evening, so we will dispense with that motion, which leads us to the first of three presentations. The first is the Saline Youth Council Youth of the Year Award nominees, and I would ask that Councilwoman McClellan, who is the council liaison to the Youth Council, as well as Jody Roberts, who's the staff liaison, if they would join me up front. Good evening. This is always difficult for me because I am always asked to sort of officiate the distribution of these awards, but I really don't do any work relating to these awards or specifically to the Youth Council. So let me begin this evening by acknowledging the tremendous efforts of Jody Roberts. How many years have you been the liaison to the Youth Council? 15. Let's give her a round of applause. She's a very gifted city employee and a talented member of our team, and so we appreciate your service. And I have to tell you, I can't think of a better liaison from City Council to the Youth Council than Heidi McClellan. She's got a lot of passion, a lot of energy, thinks a lot of this group of young people. Every time we talk, she is just so passionate, so enthusiastic, and so impressed by all of you, and I think she just does a marvelous job. So let's give her a round of applause. But of course, we are here tonight to honor all of the individuals who are nominated to be the 2017 Youth of the Year awardee. And I understand from Ms. McClellan and Ms. Roberts, and from the research that I've done, we've got a pretty extraordinary group of young people who are being recognized today. So we have, correct me if I'm wrong, Jody, we have a certificate for each one of them, as well as a City of Saline lapel pin, and I must tell you, we only give these lapel pins to our most valued and appreciated friends. So you'll be able to take that home with you this evening. Do you want to read the names? And then I believe, Heidi, you're going to be taking some pictures.
I'm going to take some pictures.
Oh, you want to say a little bit? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I was changing my mind. I want to thank Jody and Mayor Morrow for their continued help and just leadership in this council and just in the community. But as council rep, I'm super honored. Like Brian said, I'm so enthusiastic about this group of kids and just the kids in general. That it's just amazing. It's exciting. So much talent, so much community-driven potential out there for you guys. It's just fabulous. So this is the 14th year, just a little background, 14th year for the Saline Youth of the Year Award. And then in conjunction with the Saline Chamber of Commerce, the annual Saline Salutes Award. The Saline Youth Council hosts the Youth of the Year to honor outstanding teens in the Saline Area Youth School District. 12 students were nominated, 3 received multiple nominations for a total of 18 nominations. So very exciting. I think that was a record. Is that right? Yes. So with that, I think I'm going to hand the microphone over to Mayor Marl. We're going to read the names, and I'm going to take pictures because that's what I do. I'm better at it.
Actually, I think Jody's going to read the names, and I'm going to distribute the certificates and lapel pins.
It's a busy night for a lot of the students who were nominated, so we have about 6 here. We'll call everyone's name. When you come up, Mayor Morrow will give you the certificate, and if you'll stand over here, we'll take a picture here. Moms and dads, friends, you're welcome to take pictures as well, okay? Hannah Bird, are you here? No? Okay. Jane Burnett. Katie Clark. I know you're here. Claire Konzelman. Amanda Coy. Callie Harden. Evan Kirschner. Jessica Lyons. Melinda McCabe is not here tonight. Maeve Skelly. And Michael Wolf, I know you're here. Thank you. Can we get a picture over here, Mayor?
You want to get the pictures of it?
Yes, it is there, Jody.
We appreciate the young people coming. We appreciate your parents and friends being here as well, and look forward to celebrating as part of Saline Salutes this Friday. Excellent. Thank you all.
Oh, Mayor Marl, I would like to say that Riaz Clark was actually our Saline Youth of the Year award winner this year, so just want to say that he will be recognized on Friday.
Excellent. Okay, moving on the agenda this evening, we have the Saline Hotel Development Update from lead proprietor Mark Kirkendall, but I believe, Mark, you have some associates with you this evening. If you'd like to introduce them, and Mr. Kirkendall, you will be using the PowerPoint, is that correct?
We're going to use the table.
We'll use the table. Perfect. We're delighted to have you here this evening and appreciate the fact that you took time out of your busy schedule to update us on your progress.
Well, thank you, Mayor, council members, staff, for giving us this opportunity to present the status of the hotel development project. We'll first start with Tom Covert with Midwestern Consulting, then Brad Moore with J. Bradley Moore & Associates will provide some more information. Also, Jim Junga and Jim Heisler here tonight. So we just want to take this opportunity to show you where we are, and we're real pleased with the progress.
Excellent. And gentlemen, you're welcome to use either the microphone at the podium. That cordless microphone that's on the table is also on. You're welcome to use that as well, whichever is your preference.
Good evening, Council. My name is Tom Covert. I'm with Midwestern Consulting. Been asked here tonight by the development team to provide a bit of an update with regard to the parcel of land, lots 19, lot 20 of Sauk Trail Business Park. And with regard to the site, what I would tell you is that we've completed a topographic survey and a boundary survey of the subject property, which is represented by this picture that's behind you here tonight, which we've collected the utility data, the boundary lines, the property corners, and so on, and prepared this map, which has informed for us a revised schematic drawing for the project.
Pardon me, I'm going to get out of your way.
Which I'm going to set like this.
There we go.
Which has informed for us a revised schematic drawing of the site. With the information we had from the boundary and topographic survey, it allowed us to place the buildings on the site appropriately, provide for setbacks, detention, and also a utility routing plan in a schematic nature that allowed us to address all the features and elements that they were looking for with regard to the development of this site. We also had the opportunity to have conversations with DTE, which informed the schematic layout of the site in that we had moved the this building here, right here, the hotel building, a bit further to the west to provide for appropriate spacing between the property line and the building for utilities. We've also had the opportunity, it's kind of grayed out here, but this is the Zippy Car Wash site plan. We've also had an opportunity to work with them and coordinate our entry, shared entry, and then the grading concept that they had, working through their entry, our shared entry onto their site and then into our site so that we could appropriately provide for a grading scheme that would work for both projects moving forward. So from a site perspective, that's kind of a summary of where we're at. We are currently looking at landscape massing for the project, currently showing trees and so on through the parking field. And with that, that's kind of an update with regard to the site and the information that we have to date and where we're at with our schematic layout, utility routing, stormwater area, and landscape massing. So I'll turn that over to Brad to talk about the building.
Good evening, Council. My name is Brad Moore. I'm a project architect. We've been working with the owner and the engineers and the builder to try to make the hotel a reality in 3D. So what we've been crafting is a 3D model that begins to deal with the massing of the building. As Tom explained, we've worked out where the site location is going to go. We know that in order to accommodate all the functions in the building, we'll have a 3-story building and a variety of exterior materials, high-quality materials, low-maintenance materials, including stone and brick. So what I've done is, from the 3D model that we began to craft, generated a number of 3D views to kind of tell the story of what the building will look like as you move around the site. So this would be looking from the southwest from the main body of the parking towards the building. On the south end of the building, we have a single-story portion of the building which will contain the indoor pool facility. On the west side, we have the porte cochere. It's a covered drop-off. We're showing a metal roof as our roof covering in this area. This is a view from more directly to the west, slightly aerial view. In order to break up the mass of the building, we've been playing with features such as pulling parts of the building out from the main body. So on the southern end of the building, we've pulled the pool out. On the western end of the building, we've pulled this rank of hotel rooms out. We're also playing with different heights on the parapets of the building, as well as a variety of building materials as you go around the building. Again, a lower angle view from the southwest, and a lower angle view from the parking lot. This is more eye level rather than bird's eye view. You begin to see the difference in the playing of the difference of parapet heights when you're down on the ground. Again, continuing around the building clockwise. This would be the east side of the building where it abuts the existing office buildings. This would be another protrusion of the first floor out from the main body of the building. This will be part of the conference center banquet room. Again, from the east, showing an outdoor patio that will be a Three Seasons porch area. We're looking at some amenities in that might include a fireplace, some outdoor seating for when it's, we do have nice weather occasionally here in Michigan. And then again, back around towards the southeast site, again, you can see the single-story portion of the building pulled out for the pool. Again, another single-story building, that's where the screened-in porch is. So that's what we've been doing so far, is doing what we call massing studies of the building. Looking at the different opportunities for materials changes and articulation in the building. And certainly able to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the dais? Ms. Dillon?
Can you just refresh, what is it going to look like from the street side? And as you're approaching from the east, traveling west on Michigan Avenue?
So if you're traveling east or traveling?
Traveling from the east, going west, westbound.
So this is, again, the Michigan Avenue will be farther out from the building. So this is the angle that you would approach the building coming from the southeast.
Can you scooch it up a little so we can, there you go. Perfect, thank you, sorry.
So this, again, this doesn't take into account the topography that Tom's been working on, because there's going to be a berm and some landscaping across the frontage. So this is just showing a level landscaping here. But in point of fact, the landscaping comes up. Most of the first floor of this end of the building would be obscured by the berm. So most of the building you'll see is going to be from this window line up. These are just pointing out the opportunity for some signage locations. We haven't finalized that yet.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Additional questions? Ms. McClellan?
Yeah, this might be a question for Tom, but I noticed on the landscaping, there's no trees or anything on the Michigan Avenue side. Is that correct?
We aren't currently showing any trees other than in the parking fields, but we do understand that there is a requirement to have trees buffering and a slight berm along this area here, which we're working out with how that would be placed with where they want signage on buildings and those kinds of things.
Okay.
But we do understand that, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Additional questions? Mr. Kirkendall, you or your associates have any additional thoughts you'd like to share? Mr. Heisler?
Yes, one of the things that we're trying to accomplish with this meeting is to see if we have fulfilled or what we need to do to fulfill a clause in the contract on the purchase agreement that we've met the character and the quality of what we've represented, initially when we were here. So we're just trying to, since I know there was concern on kind of the chicken and egg syndrome here, that you didn't want to usurp the planning commission, we just wondered what we needed to do to fulfill that portion of it before it can move on.
Very good. Well, before I guess I'll begin with Mr. Seo and probably end with Councilwoman Mitchell. Let me begin, because you're indeed correct, Mr. Heisler. There is a clause in the sales agreement that stipulates that council needs to essentially sign off on the decor and the aesthetic of the project in the hopes that it maintains the character and feel, or the character and feel that we hope to achieve on our eastern border. And certainly it's true that I've had more conversations and interactions with Mr. Kirkendall and his team than some of my other colleagues. But I must tell you that I believe in every conversation that Mark and I have had, he's articulated the strongest possible emphasis on design and look and wanting something that is attractive, and something that is really impressive when you enter the city at our eastern border. So I think it's keeping with that promise. And I'm interested in moving forward at one of our upcoming council meetings. But I'm interested in hearing the thoughts of my colleagues. Now, I should also note, I've always been pretty excited about this project for many reasons. One, because it adds a parcel to the tax rolls that hasn't been on the tax rolls in a long time. Two, it's, we're working with people who are really invested in the community, and we're going to be filling a need that I believe is desperately needed. And I talk a lot about expanding the tax base, offering services and amenities to our people, and providing jobs. And I think all those things are essential, when you're trying to create a quality, sustainable community in the 21st century. But I'll get off my soapbox. Mr. CO, your thoughts?
I think architecturally it looks very nice. I think that a little more could be done with that front-facing lot on 12 there for landscaping design. But other than that, I think it presents a very, very nice picture.
I guess that was part of the question, is we didn't get into the landscaping design because we felt that was more, comes later. There's a lot of rules and a map for us to follow. It was kind of this first part we were concerned about, so
Yep.
we sure understand we need more to do there.
I think the building looks very nice.
Let me just read you what your approval here is. The design of the hotel shall, in addition to any other approvals required under this agreement, that's in addition to the site plan and other approvals process with the Planning Commission, be subject to City Council approval to ensure the hotel is of the same character and quality represented during the buyer's presentation to the City Council on July 11, 2016. So if you'll recall, they had the Best Western slides that they were showing you as to what it would look like. And so your approval here is just to determine whether it's of the same kind of character and quality. And the rest of it, the landscaping and so forth, Mr. CEO, the Planning Commission will address. They have been made aware of the landscaping requirements and indicated no problem in complying with it.
Certainly. I think the building itself meets what I had in my mind as requirements set forth in the original proposal or the original council resolution.
May I ask that while we're having these questions and discussions, could you put the street views back on the screen for us, please? Thank you. I'm sorry for the interruption.
No. Ms. Dillon?
Well, I think, most of the pictures, the front views from the parking lot, it's nice, it's very aesthetic, but 99%, unless you're going to the hotel, you will not see that. It's not something you'll see from the street. So my biggest concern is what you're going to be seeing as you're passing by on Michigan Avenue. These views you wouldn't see unless you're in the parking lot, correct?
You are correct on these, or you'll see
Right.
them coming down. Obviously, the car, if Zippy's proceeds, that will be some. You'll be looking over that, and when you look past
But the
the
Ace
future
building will-
Ace, right, you're
would
going to
block
see
them.
parts of it, but it's not going to be this prominent. You are correct,
Okay.
especially that view right there, because you're looking, probably standing at the entrance off of Michigan Avenue, and that sort of line there will be where there'll be a building.
Okay.
One-
And how close is it to the office complex buildings?
About 30 feet, I believe. Which-
Is it complementary building style? Is it completely, it's obviously a different style, but does it complement what's already there?
That's where we get into the colors, which we have not chosen yet. It's not the same, obviously, because those are
Well,
more of a
they're-
residential style, lower, and brick. This has the three materials, which when you have this massive a building, will make it a nicer building, and that's where we're trying to put a little more emphasis on some of the changes in the site, so it wasn't just a straight box like you would see in some of the Holiday Inn Expresses and that are just basically a big rectangle with a porte cochere out in front. So to say that they're complementary, I don't believe they're dissimilar enough in use in that I think in my opinion, they'll be fine. And the materials used on this, it isn't a complete EFS type building where it's just looks like basically drywall outside. With the use of the stone and the brick, it's going to break the size or the mass of the building up. So I think it will be complementary, even though it's taller and a bigger building, it'll work. By the way, my office is
I know
30
your
feet from
office is
there.
right.
My view will be the banquet room, so.
Okay,
There's about 50 feet building to building.
okay. Thank you very much.
Mr. Hart?
Yes, thank you. Yes, so like Mr. CO, I'm interested to see what the Michigan Avenue, so that will be the north elevation, will look like with some landscaping. I will say that I think from what I recall of the slides we saw from Best Western of Best Western Plus designs, I didn't like some of them. I like this. I think this is a better match for the style that we have in Saline than some of those others were. So I think I would say I feel you've met that condition from my point of view.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Tahar. Mr. Gearbaugh?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, just from the front of it, is really the understanding the pedestrian experience. I really don't want to usurp the Planning Commission's opinion because those members of the commission will have more say. And I mean, we're just looking kind of at concepts and so forth. As everyone knows on this council and does planning, signage is a big issue with me. So the less billboards that appear on any building or request for variance to that effect is an appreciation. I agree with Ms. Tahar and the other members that I think the design is a little bit more futuristic. Some of the newer hotels going up on State Street are very plain or are very one type material. And I think having that mixture, this looks more familiar as to what's kind of going up in Detroit and so forth, and kind of tying in with a more 21st century look is my hope and desire. But other than that, it's fine with me.
Ms. McClellan?
I agree that I think the north view is the one that I'd like to see with the landscaping. Also, do you have a picture of what the sign would look like for those spots at this point, or that's still up in the air?
This is too preliminary of a point to actually drill down to that level.
Okay. Because I feel like that kind of has an important, that's going to be a pretty prominent piece of that facade, which obviously that's what you want, right? Because that's where people are going to see it. But I think it's important for that to be fit in with the style and the overall theme of the building. I don't have an issue so much with the theme of the building. Building materials, you're thinking stone and brick and stucco, or?
Yeah, EFS stucco.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's it for me, so thank you.
Very good. Ms. Mitchell?
So I have concern about the signs as well, and I would hope that they are not on that part of the building, that if there is another place to have the signs, and I'm looking forward to the Planning Commission because I bow to their authority and their recommendations. The lighter part, can you talk about materials, please, a little bit, Mr. Moore? Is the lighter part, is that your intention, that is the stucco? Maybe I'm having trouble visualizing just a bit.
Yeah, we have not gone through a full color palette selection process. We were just trying to use a very monotone presentation to represent dissimilar materials. So the lighter material that you see up in this area is more likely going to be the EFS. And then the lighter tan would be the stone, and then the darker tan would be the brick.
With respect, it's not what I expected to see when I envisioned it, and it'll take me some time to digest it, but just on first glance, it's not what I expected to see.
Any other questions, comments from the dais?
Just
Mr. Gearba?
Just clarification, when you were talking about the lighter color, what material is that? Is it going to be stained, like steel, stucco?
Exterior stucco.
Okay.
Anything else, Ms. Mitchell?
I'm sorry, and so this is not a final color palette? You're trying to show the different elevations, is that right?
Correct.
And so, I work in visual arts, so, and your color theme is going to be more, what, how would you describe?
Well, at this time, we're really not there. We're looking at size, massing of buildings.
I see.
Different ones, because the criteria were to make sure it was a building similar to what we've shown you in quality of materials, and, that we do have, the parapet wall is not just one right across, that the face of the building's not straight. We understand that's important to us too, and when we actually get that, because quite frankly, all that costs money, we want to make sure we got this obligation fulfilled, so when we work on the other, which we'll be coming with all that, but at the appropriate time.
I see, thank you.
So to be clear, you're not giving your approval or sign off under this provision tonight. They've not asked for that. What this is an update to kind of show you and to get any concerns out on the table so that they can address those
I see,
before they come and ask for your sign off.
thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Ms. Dillon?
Is this a current configuration that Best Western is using? Because I don't remember seeing anything in this type of design in the pictures we were shown.
So we're working with both Mr. Kirkendall and Best Western to try to achieve both of their goals in designs and how the building presents itself. So this isn't a quote-unquote typical Best Western. This is more designed based on Best Western's overall standards, but on Mr. Kirkendall's preferences.
Okay. So does it meet Best Western's criteria?
It does.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Additional,
Just a little bit on a Best Western, that's one of the reasons it was chosen, is that they give you more flexibility than, let's say, Holiday Inn Express, which you have very rigid criteria there, because it's almost like a GM dealership or a Chevy dealership. They want them all to look the same wherever you are. Best Western has certain features they want and certain effects they want, so it's pleasing when you see it, and just like here, it doesn't look like one great big building, because we're going for one of the upper levels of the Best Western, which is called a Premier if we can get it. Right now, we're at the Best Western Plus, so as you go up, you do have some choices, and we're trying to achieve their highest level, which does give you more flexibility in what you can do.
Thank you.
additional comments or questions?
Just real quick, the height so far is still in agreement with the SPA 1 height. There isn't any kind of variance request coming forward?
Not to our knowledge, we'll double check it, but that,
Because I know there is some for the
Yeah.
parapets and so forth, there's
Yeah.
some leeway, but I just wanted to make sure there wasn't any.
yeah,
height
I am 95% or 99% sure we're there, but we will double check it after that to make sure.
Thanks, Jim.
I was just looking at some of the pictures from other Best Westerns, and the stone on the ends, it looks like you have windows in there, so that sits out quite a bit. The piece in the middle, is that just facade?
No,
That comes out too?
that's another 2 feet.
Okay, okay, because it looks like it's like the facade that Myers has, right? You know, so, good,
No,
thank you.
these are actually the exteriors of the building and are real.
Okay, good, thank you.
One last opportunity for questions or comments. Gentlemen, Mr. Kirkendall, do you care to make any final remarks?
Thank you guys for helping us show what we have so far. The exterior of the building is taken from a number of Best Western prototype drawings that we've looked at, also from just my experience with a couple of other hotel companies. And it was somewhat dictated from the interior working out with the layout of the floor plan of the first floor with the banquet room, making sure that we get the right type of banquet room, the right type of small restaurant and bar set up with good traffic flow for the guests and the staff. And that has dictated some of the design of the exterior. So we'll be sharing that. I think that we've got some work to do on that for the configuration to work exactly the way we want it, but a lot of that has been dictated from the inside working out. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm also available for questions at any time outside council meetings about the development of the project. We're real excited about it. Thank you.
Very good. Mark, thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate your attendance this evening. Hopefully you feel like you got some good feedback from us and you know how to proceed, hopefully in the not too distant future with a resolution that council would consider and hopefully approve. I'm also mindful of the fact, Mr. Kirkendall, you've been in this business a long time. It's not your first time at the rodeo, and you want to create a quality product in Saline that's a destination and attractive, because that's not only good for this area but also good for you personally and your business. So keep up the good work. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Jim, please.
Just have one other quick, as far as the council and Mr. Mayor, that we're, what we've shown you today is pretty much, if we kind of brush up with a few of the comments, what we could bring back. Is that what you're looking for?
That's what I'm hearing from a majority of council.
I just
Yeah,
want
I'd
to
say so.
confirm that.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
One more real quick comment. The north elevation, I think there was a couple of council members that expressed a little concern about that. That's still in progress to make sure that that looks as attractive as possible, considering the signage and that view from guests and people driving into town from the east. So that is a concern. We're working on that part.
Yeah, and my hope is that to incorporate the pedestrian experience in that too, so however that front design is, because that's going to be a main sidewalk to get to the shopping center and the movie theaters and everything. So as we look at our non-motorized routes and everything, as they come in here, that's going to be the big connection where everybody's going to be walking down and into that area. So just an FYI.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you. That's very good input. We appreciate that.
Mark, thank you. Gentlemen, have a wonderful evening. Appreciate you coming out and updating us on this exciting project. Have a good one. We move on now to the third and final presentation of the evening. We have an update from our Farmer Market Managing Director, and we welcome you here this evening. We understand you have a PowerPoint, is that correct?
Yeah.
And as soon as it's illuminated on the screen, you may begin.
Thank you. My computer has decided to restart.
Oh,
Yay!
we've all been there.
So I tweaked a few things while we're waiting. I tweaked a few things from what I sent earlier, just to throw that out there. I also wanted to say that a few of my friends of the market board are here, and I'm thankful that they're here to support me. I have got a great group that are bringing me great ideas and support and help in a lot of the things and ideas that I have this year. I had tech issues the last time I presented here, so I'm going through similar issues.
If for whatever reason it doesn't work, council does have paper copies of your slideshow presentation.
It's a Prezi presentation, so it's different from PowerPoint and that it's a lot flashier. So I was really excited to be able to show how flashy it is. And the slides are that you have are kind of a weird background that doesn't really show the quality of the presentation. Sorry about that.
It's probably doing the Windows update that I just did this morning.
I just went to time it out as I was walking up here, and I decided it didn't want to do that.
Christine, maybe you could start with your paper copy, and then if it does, then you can kind of
Okay.
take off from there.
And I didn't bring
Sure,
an actual purchase. Like one? I'm sorry.
It's all right, I'll share.
Sure.
And if it doesn't pop up for whatever reason, we can also put it on the city website for the public's viewing as
Yeah,
well.
that'd be great. Thank you for this time to go over what I have planned and what I've been kind of chewing on since I've started back in October. So what I wanted to present about today are 4 separate topics. The first one being the dilemma of the Tuesday market. I had heard there were issues with the Tuesday market before I even started officially, and so it was something that I knew I wanted to get on top of and really decide what the best option was and reach out to the community, reach out to the vendors, and take a look at what we should be doing here. So the concerns that we have, first concerns are the location. The library, it's a great location to be there, the city-owned property, and connected with a wonderful resource for the area. But as far as the farmer's market itself goes, the asphalt parking lot gets very hot for the summer when the market vendors are there especially. They complain a lot about the asphalt. All of them had talked to me about that. They also said that, and this is something I've seen over and over again in markets I've managed, is an open parking lot is really difficult for the vendors to have tents set up. And even the day I was there doing dot surveys with the community, one of the vendors lost their tent and it rolled over and bumped into other products from the vendor next door. So that is also a concern that they had talked to me about and had problems with. I've heard complaints through surveys and face-to-face complaints with the customers about the lack of vendors, but the vendors have been complaining about the lack of customers in that area as well, especially after the school is out for the summer. They get regular attendance as school is going on, but when the summer came in, the market really dropped out, and a lot of the vendors that started with the market at the beginning of the year would drop off as well, even at the cost of losing their seasonal fees. All 3 of what I would consider key vendors for that market had come to me and told me when I initially, as I said, started and wanted to pursue this issue, said that unless something changed, they weren't going to be going back to that Tuesday market. So that really was a big eye-opener for me. So what should we do, I guess, is what it comes down to. Should we cancel the Tuesday market? The conversations with the vendors and the farmers say that there are quite a few local markets and that they're spread thin. They're not able to make money when they are paying individuals to be at markets just down the street a day after our market or 2 days after our market. So they were concerned about that, whether Saline needed a Tuesday market at this time. Also because there's 3 local product stores going into Saline. And Bush does a really good job of offering local products as well. So would it be canceling that altogether? And then I see the benefits of that when I'm talking to the vendors and the farmers. I'm concerned about these stores, but I've come up with an alternative as well because I feel like I wanted to give my try coming in and seeing what I could do and helping this market go and helping the community go. So, so the suggestion after all of the surveys and all of the talking to vendors and customers that I have come up with is offering to move the market to the Rentschler Farm, historic Rentschler Farm. The farm is the city-owned property. I've spoken to the Historical Society, and they've approved this. They think it's a great idea. It would become, the market would no longer be just a shopping market where you would stop on your way through and pick up what you needed and go home, but it could also be not just a shopping market, I should say, but also be a destination market. This could be something that people bring their kids to and pet the animals or see the animals or hang out. There's grass and trees. As with the Cobblestone Market, if any of you have been that market, they have similar kind of setup with lots of trees and the farm with a few animals, not as many animals as the Rentschler Farm has. And families sit down with their blankets and they hang out there and they buy things from maybe a food truck or two that are there, that might even bring in people from the plant next door or driving through that might want to stop. There's a possibility for future educational opportunities that linked in with the Historical Society. I'm really excited about this very rare opportunity that we would have a farm-to-table experience right there. That's something that I have not, I know that I just said the Cobblestone Farm has something similar, but they don't have the kind of farm or garden that Rentschler Farm has put together. And I really think it would be neat to be able to educate the community and the children that vegetables and fruits just don't magically appear on the counter in the store or even at the market, that you could walk over, maybe 50 feet, not even that, and see that where the plant is planted, how it looks when it's planted, how it looks when it's on the vine. And they could be more educated in that way. I think the farm there has also given away some of their produce. They also sold it sometimes at the garage sale that they have there. So this would offer them a chance that if they wanted to, they could be selling their items there at the market and raise money for the Historical Society or for the farm. A lot of the vendors, including the key vendors that I was talking about before, really have supported this idea. They think that, maybe, they think that it's a good, unique idea, and they're willing to give it a try. This year, they've been excited with what I've done so far and working with me, that they're willing to also commit to this opportunity. I would be now showing you a picture in front of the barn on the south side, facing Saline. There's a big cement pad there. Cement is a lot cooler than the asphalt is, so and yet it doesn't have the issues that dirt and grass have for tents and tables. So I think that would be a perfect location for the majority of the vendors to set up for the market. The buildings to each side of it will block some of the wind as well. The next photos or next slides would be just kind of little drawings of where the tents would go, kind of so you can picture how it might look. And then also there would be places all around in that area where you would be able to add in more vendors and more tents. There's the gazebo, which I envisioned might be a fun place to have a musician at playing. I think music is, in all of the markets that I've been at, music really adds a lot to an atmosphere of the market. The vendors love it, and it makes them love coming to the market and being part of the market more, but also it keeps the customers around a lot more, and they look forward to it every week. As I said, also possibility of a food truck or two that could set up there. One question that we initially came up with right away was parking. And in talking to the Historical Society individuals, they did say that they would approve 12 parking spots that were towards the back there. I guess, is that the pig house, pig barn, something kind of back in that area. There would be 12 spots that are on the grass there. They were okay with that, as well as some parking that was along the street there. And that amount of parking, just in the little drawings that I did, is probably as much as we really have downtown right now for our market downtown. We don't have quite a lot of parking down there either. Most of it's usually taken up when the customers come through with other individuals, so we don't have a lot of parking anyways. There are possibilities, other extension for parking if we need so, but right now that's kind of the rough idea anyways. So I'm presenting this issue, and I'm not sure exactly how to go forward with getting your input on this. I can continue with the rest of the presentation.
Christine, I guess if there's any questions or comments, concerns that council might have to relocate it out there, that's kind of what this is, to kind of let you know this is what our plan is, and then address any concerns that any of you all may have.
We'll begin, excuse me, at the opposite end of the dais with Councilwoman Mitchell, and then conclude with Councilmember Seo. But let me say this. First of all, I appreciate the presentation. I'm sorry we were unable to get the PowerPoint to work this evening, but we'll make sure it's emailed out to council and put on the city's website. I would say this to you, Christine. We hire you as the operational manager of the market. This is a strategic decision that you want to make. It's clear that you've vetted it and discussed it with a number of stakeholders. We have some representatives from the Saline Area Historic Society here with us this evening. It sounds like you've gotten buy-in from them. I say keep us in the loop, but move forward. I don't want to micromanage what you do. Okay. Seems like this is a good idea, worth exploring and worth implementing, and we'll see what happens. Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Ms. Easley. I think you presented very well despite your technical, so be assured you can come through in a pinch. I'm excited about this idea. I'm excited particularly about the link of where our food actually comes from. I'm not saying no. I'm concerned about parking or safety of families with young kids, and some of the events that sound like would be a bigger draw, I think will introduce the problem of parking. Not completely insolvable. We may or may not have geocached in that area and parked in another parking lot. So, but I'm excited to see what comes next. Thank you.
I did forget to say that the plan was to block off that main driveway going up.
I see.
So for safety reasons, and yeah, and then people would just be coming in from that parking area, and so no cars would be driving in any of those other areas.
I see.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great.
Thank you for bringing that up. And the location, I didn't say that either. Of course, the location for traffic is really going to be exciting too, right? The plant next door, which one of our vendors, Paul Niffen, who has the eggs, if you guys are familiar with them, they've been there for years, works there, and he's like, well, not a lot of people know about it from the plant. Well, if we're right there, then hopefully they will, you know. And then, of course, all the exciting things happening at the strip mall with the movie theater, and across the street now, as we see with the hotel. I think it could be a great location to capture people.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. Again, I think it's a great idea. It's so exciting. I love it over there, and it's just a beautiful place to be, period. And then to bring the activity, it's sort of like having a harvest harvest at the farm every week. So I think, and I'm really excited about the work that you put in and, you know, your ideas, and I see it as very positive. I think if you're blocking off that main entrance, you won't have any issues with traffic flow at all. You know, parking will come. You know, that's something I wouldn't worry about, me personally wouldn't worry about at this point, so. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Gearbox?
Yeah, and I'm a member of the Historical Society Board, so we've discussed some of this, and I think the museum won't be open, but the farm area, just to experience it and so forth, so that even maybe the garden might participate with it. I do, though, want to wave a flag. As Mr. McClellan mentioned, at harvest time, we have had issues with the parking, so you're going to want to make sure that Tractor Supply knows what's going on, and maybe the other shopping center, because there are some areas where no parking is required, and there's concerns with emergency vehicles being able to get in and out. So that would be only one of my issues, because I've run into it and had to be the one that helped try and negotiate some of that stuff. And the only other one thing that would be is I think if it was to be sufficiently wet to park cars on that lawn might be an issue where you may have to say no on an occasion if it's super wet or something like that. But those are only my issues.
Mayor Pro Tem Tar?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the presentation, and I think this is a brilliant idea. Of course, there will be things to work out, but I think it has really great possibilities.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Dillon?
Thank you. Again, like everyone else, great presentation. As a parent that picks up their child at the library, I have been, I'll tell you, I love this idea because it's a huge free-for-all in that parking lot. There's kids running through the market, there's people driving, there's tents flying into cars like mine. It really isn't all that conducive. It's a small area and people are very territorial about their parking spaces, and it does become a bit of a problem. So I like the idea of that. My one question is for you, you talked about pavement and it being hot. I mean, do you have that issue in downtown also?
It isn't quite as bad as it is on that asphalt for some reason.
It's in the morning, too.
Yes, it is in the morning, and there is some shade from those tall buildings on either side too.
Okay.
So it doesn't seem to be kind of like an open, hot sun area. Yeah.
So, well, I think it's a wonderful idea. I'm looking forward to seeing it come through. Thank you.
Mr. Seal?
Interesting concept. I think you've addressed a number of the issues that you presently face, and I wish you good luck.
Thank you. If it's okay, then I'll just go on with the rest of the update quickly. So this year, we're going to be offering more ways to pay. Just to update, what we had previously had at the market was EBT and SNAP, which was formerly known as food stamps, but only at the Saturday market in the summer because we had a hookup for the phone line there. We offered WIC Project Fresh and Senior Market Fresh, which are coupons, a cash, of course, and then some vendors took their own credit cards. But new for 2017, is we have a new EBT machine that we received free from a grant from the Farmers Market Coalition. It's wireless, so therefore it can be used at all of the markets, which is really exciting. We will also be offering Double Up Food Bucks, which is an amazing incentive program that doubles purchases on EBT or bridge cards up to $20. So we have had issues in the past with not getting a lot of people using the EBT, and I know and the demographics of this area isn't the same as when I was working in Ypsilanti, but this program will help to bring in more more individuals that have their bridge cards that can use it, because it is a free $20 that they can have tokens to spend on fruits and vegetables only and Michigan grown only at the market. So it's a great incentive program. It's going to start in April, and it is a year-round program for us. So we'll be able to offer it even in the winter market. So that'll be great too. I'm also going to be starting a credit card, debit card tokens as a service both to the customers and to the vendors. It's going to be using the same processor that we have with the EBT and SNAP that we got, the new machine. When I did surveys at the beginning of the market when I first started. 20%, or I'm sorry, 60% approximately of customers indicated that cash limited their purchases when they were there. So even though some of the vendors have their credit card machines, the customers still aren't using them enough, or maybe the vendors that they want to buy things from don't have a credit card machine. But we've seen significant sales increase in Ypsilanti with credit card tokens and processing. Like I said, it's a great service for the vendors. It can only mean more uncaptured sales. Some feedback that I've received from the surveys and from my Friends of the Market groups have said that they really believe that this has stopped people. It's just not convenient anymore to carry that much cash on, and a lot of people use their cards, the plastic. So we're really excited to bring all of those items on as well. And then we were one of the chosen few by Farmers Market Coalition and Michigan Farmers Market Association to participate in an online portal for measurements of the market. It's a pilot program that eventually they want to do nationwide. They started with Michigan because Michigan has a great network with their farmers markets, and we're one of, I think it's around 12 or 15, maybe less than that, markets throughout the state to be offered this opportunity. So we have free access to reporting tools and spreadsheets online. It's going to expand as well, so I can't even imagine everything that will be able to be used, but I'm excited about the opportunity to do it. And the purpose for that is that farmers market data, especially the economic data, has rarely been collected or even considered in the world and in government, and the impact that all of these markets popping up everywhere are making, because a lot of people don't necessarily report all of that money in some way. So we're hoping that this will help us to use this data and advocate for farmers markets, farmers, and vendors a little bit more. More that are coming to the markets. Cooking demos are to start April 22nd, so that'll be indoor market with Salt Springs Brewery. Really excited about that. It's going to be a monthly thing. Some of the great ideas that when we sat down and talked were possibility of offering that as that special of the day is the farmers market thing that they created at the market, and really getting into it. They're quite excited about working with the market. I would like to also set up an Instagram account. I think a lot of people are using that right now, and there's so many beautiful things about the market that we can be putting out on Instagram. I'm looking to have music, and because we don't have much budget for paying musicians at this time, I'm reaching out to see if we can get any cheap or free musicians in the area that might be able to help us out that way. Live art demonstrations. Val has been a great help in getting some connections with some artists in the area that want to come to the market and just do their art there. And I think it's just a great addition in many ways. It's a great connection with the community and culture all there at the market. Kids crafts, I've been already doing on a weekly basis, a different kids craft every day to make it something where the kids actually want to come to the market with the parents, and then therefore while they're there, hopefully they'll learn about where their food comes from, and be more involved in the choices that their parents make for vegetables, and then therefore try them more often and eat them more often. Then possibility for more if there is funding, and I would like to be working on sponsorships soon, very soon. Is maybe some cheap or inexpensive paid live music. As I said, I really do think that it really makes a market to have this kind of background music. It creates a great atmosphere. Cooking demos or sampling, nutrition education really goes a long way, I've found over and over again at my markets, to helping the vendors sell things that maybe other the customers have not tried before, and also to expand our communities, the individuals' tastes to try things and new things. Planned cool kids activities, having planned events, and being able to do a little bit more than what my little crafts were. Planned events, maybe the food truck rallies like they have at Ann Arbor, or special market days, a tomato fest day maybe, where we all celebrate that first Saturday that the tomatoes are there, because if you love Michigan grown tomatoes like I do, I'm all excited when they finally come out. So something along those lines, those ideas, and also like a harvest event or something like that. So I am always open to any suggestions and ideas that anybody has. And you know where to find my information on the website. So please feel free to contact me. And again, I would like to thank my friends of the market group for being there to help me and volunteering their time and supporting me and getting me kind of the inside scoop for the community, since I'm still really new. Hey, just in time, right?
We'll make sure it's distributed out to council, Christine. We appreciate your time this evening. Are there any additional comments or questions for our farmers market director? Well, we appreciate your time, appreciate your board being here. Thank you for your service, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. Okay, we proceed now to do citizen comments on agenda items. Under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward at this time, make comment or question on an item that appears on this agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. Are there any citizen comments? I'll ask again, are there any citizen comments? Then we'll proceed to the consent agenda. The following consent agenda will normally be adopted without discussion. However, at the request of any citizen or council member, any item may be removed from the consent agenda for council discussion.
The consent agenda is distributed.
It's been moved by Councilmember CO to approve the consent agenda as submitted. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Tahar. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to unfinished business, item 14-134. This is wastewater treatment plant improvement phase 2 change order and pay estimate number 13. This is a series of 2 motions. Motion A will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the February 10th, 2017 memo from Tetra Tech and to approve or not to approve change order number 2.
Move to acknowledge and approve.
Thank you, Councilmember CO. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Tahar. Who from staff would like to comment on this? Bob? Bob and Mr. Rubel from Tetra Tech? Gotta get you to change a last name or something, it's very...
Maybe I should do that.
Yeah, it's very confusing.
Smith? I don't know.
Appreciate you sticking around, though.
Well, the first portion is change order number 2, and it's summed up pretty good in Gary's memo. There's a series of additions that happened during construction that affected the cost, and there was a series of actual deductions which reduced the cost for an overall increase of $17,515.
Okay. Mr. Brian Rubel, do you care to make any additional comments? Obviously, we discussed this issue at length at a previous meeting. That's why it's coming back to us as unfinished business, and I suspect there are a number of comments and questions from the dais, but we would welcome your thoughts at this time.
One of the issues we talked about last month was the status of the filter. Would it be helpful if I started with just a very brief update on where we stand with the filter?
I think that would be excellent.
I think things are looking good for the filter. The last series of repairs was completed at the end of February, and I did attach a photo log that Mr. Ard from my office created that showed the status of the filters before the repair and the repairs that were actually conducted to the filter. They did, Nova, the manufacturer of the filter, did complete a series of very robust repairs to the filter, really strengthened the device, And since that repair about 3 weeks ago, knock on wood, things have been running very well. So we're optimistic that they're on the right track. And Mr. Skull and I promised that we're going to keep an eye on that, and we certainly would welcome the opportunity to come back, say, in April, and update you on how that's performing. So the other thing about the filter that I think is important is I think there was a letter in your package from NOVA that indicated that the repairs of the filter were theirs and theirs alone to make. They did not blame any other party but themselves for the needed repairs, and excluded Weiss from any responsibility for those repairs. So that was a question last time, and hopefully that has helped answer some of those questions. So that is a brief summary of the filter themselves. I could talk a little bit more about the change order and the pay applications, but I'd be happy to answer any more questions on the filter.
All right, let's start with questions relating specifically to the filter, which was brought up as a concern last month at a council meeting. Are there any additional questions or comments regarding that particular issue, Councilwoman Dillon?
Generally, what was your time frame for failure with it? Did it fail immediately? Was it 2 weeks and then it would fail?
There was a series of different issues that occurred with the filter. Different components failed at various times. I believe we did have 3 or 4 weeks at one point without a failure, and then another part would fail. So it was a series of things. I know we had a 3 or 4 week gap where we operated successfully. So I'd like to see.
So we could just be riding that wave right now?
I'm sorry?
We could be riding that wave right now?
I'd like to see it run a few more weeks before I felt confident to come back and tell you that we're over the hump. Yes.
Thank you.
Additional questions regarding the filter? Mr. Gearbo?
I guess my question is just the extension of the warranty or whatever on it. I mean, I'm reading Nova's letter here, but I guess clarification on what do we have above and beyond what we would have expected at this point?
Yes, the contract granted you a 2-year parts warranty and essentially a 1-year labor warranty. That was part of the contract, what was bid. Weiss Construction went to bat on your behalf with Nova and acquired a 3-year parts and labor warranty at no additional cost to the city. I believe what you have in front of you is a cost to further extend that to a 4th and 5th year, if you wish to do that. I'm not saying it's at all necessary, but it is something that city staff asked me to have Weiss acquire for your consideration.
Can we do that at the end of year 3? Or do they want it now?
Weiss is here. I think they're going to come up and perhaps talk to you. I confess I did not ask how long that quote was valid for. So
thanks. Okay.
We can find that answer out easy enough.
Very good. Additional questions regarding the filter? Do you want to speak to the additional issue that you alluded to just moments ago?
I'd be happy to. You have 2 items in front of you tonight. The first item is change order number 2. And as Mr. Skull indicated, this is kind of what we call a balancing change order. At the end of the project, there's a few extra things that the contractor did and a few things that they did not need to do. So there's some adds and some subtracts. And that's what this is. This would be the last change order. We have vetted all of the items extensively. So we as Tetra Tech feel very, very comfortable with what's in front of you. It's valid work and it's a fair price. So this would be the last change order, financial change order on the project. The other item on that change order is schedule. And that, I think, was the big topic of last month, is items ran long on the project. And you had granted Weiss 1 extension last summer. And the work took longer than that 1 extension. And so one of the issues in front of you is whether to grant Weiss more time and grant the dates that are written in that change order right now, which would effectively waive any monetary damages assessed against the contractor. The other, again, you could in fact revisit those dates and not extend the time and assess damages against the contractor. So that is a question linked to that change order. The second item you have is the pay application, number 13, which is nearly the final pay application. It essentially includes everything owed to Weiss with the exception of the amount that's still outstanding on the filter. Staff and the professionals felt it best that we wait another few weeks before paying that final amount on the filter. I will say that Weiss disagrees with that, but still that is the recommendation that's in front of you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Rubel. Who's here representing Weiss tonight? Would you like to come forward and make a comment at this time? Don't need to, but we would extend that courtesy if that's your wish.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. My name is John Arvey. I'm the project manager for the job. I'm also the chief estimator for Weiss. I also reside in Saline. So when we originally were low on this project, or awarded, I should say, this project after being the second bidder, we know that certain due diligence was done and found that we were the most responsible bidder over 45 years of performing quality work with numerous owners and engineers. We have a history of making sure our reputation is intact with owners, engineers, as well as suppliers and subcontractors. This particular project had its challenges. We're not going to, there's no way around that, I should say, okay? We're tasked with providing equipment that Saline specifically wanted. It was written in our contract to provide that. We did, and we moved forward, and the project was moving along. At certain stages, there were some bumps in the road, and we put our best foot forward and pushed the project as much as we could, and worked overtime, weekends, whenever we could to try to make up the project schedule at no cost to Saline. All right. After we got over the hurdle, and let's say, for instance, the filter was operational, unfortunately, there were other breakdowns that occurred, and this is after it was accepted. Weiss stepped up and made sure that we were involved in the repair for Saline, and that Nova met the requirements and came out and addressed it immediately. And they, to their credit, they have not backed down from anything and have been out here every single time an issue has come up. With that being said, the difficulties with some of this equipment did delay our ability to finish certain areas of work. However, eventually we got to the finish line, and the equipment right now has been operating as intended, and we've been able to keep, through our work and effort, a lot of additional effort, the relationship's intact. Saline is going to have a long relationship with these equipment suppliers that they had requested in the specification, and I think at this point that is intact and good moving forward. I appreciate the time to talk, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
No, we appreciate you being here tonight, sir. Are there questions for our guest? Mr. Seal.
I guess I just want to state that I was the one that asked the question last week, or the last council meeting, why we shouldn't impose the clause in the contract that calls for damages because of a delay in the completion of the project. And I've read through a number of things. I've talked to some other people in other segments of the construction industry about those kinds of exercises. And I must say that having read and understood, I think, what I have about the character of the work you folks did on our behalf, about what Nova has now done on our behalf, and what's generally accepted in the industry, that I appreciate the extra work you folks did. the quality of the construction that you brought forward for us, and I think you folks have done a good job, and I'm willing to close out the whole business tonight.
Okay, I appreciate that, sir. Thank you.
Additional questions? Thank you again for your time.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank you.
it. Any subsequent questions or comments for staff or any of our guests? No? How about subsequent discussion on the motion moved by CO, seconded by Tahar, to acknowledge receipt and to approve? Any? Ms. Tahar, please.
Yes, I would just like to say I didn't have the conversations with others that Mr. CO did, but having read the memos we've received for this meeting and understanding how much the Weiss Company has gone to bat for us with working out the situation with the Nova filters, I am also very inclined to support this.
Okay. Very good. Additional comments? Mr. Gearbaugh?
Just a question, and as
Please.
I'm reading through some of these documents, and maybe this is backing off onto a different issue, but when I look at the Nova filters and how those were installed, and the decision was made to use Nova versus something else that was $95,000 more, who made that decision?
We being Tetra Tech and city staff, interviewed vendors as part of the design process. We had them actually come to this area and present to us. We vetted them, we checked references, and we took bids, actually in this case, called alternate bids, where we actually got prices for each different vendor. We only got prices for those vendors that had demonstrated to us that they had a successful track record and a successful product, excuse me. So we only got prices for firms that we were comfortable with. We got those prices. Nova was, in fact, $95,000 lower than the next one that we had. When that came in, Mr. Skull and myself and my staff talked about that. Since we were both comfortable with that price, that was what was brought to the council for award.
So your recommendation from your review and everything, as in terms of the product, was partially your determination was that you felt it was a
absolutely
product. Okay. I'm just trying to understand a little bit from my own perspective how a decision was made for this product because of the concerns that we're having with it now.
We did a great deal of due diligence on Nova, and all of it was very successful. All the references were excellent. It's unfortunate that we had these stumbles on your project. I'm optimistic that these repairs will get us past that.
Additional discussion? Well, let me just say before we proceed to vote that I appreciate everyone's participation in this discussion this evening. And when I say that, I'm speaking specifically of our guests as well as a representative from Tetra Tech and Mr. Skull. And while I greatly respect the positions of my colleagues, I stand behind my objections and concerns that I articulated at the last meeting, and I will be voting against the motion that's on the floor. Any subsequent discussion? Hearing none, then we'll proceed to vote. It's been properly moved by CO, seconded by Tahar, to acknowledge receipt and to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Was the other nay? Okay, so 2 nays. Who was the third? You were a nay as well? Let's do a show of hands on this one. My apologies. All those in favor, raise your hand.
Of just a change order.
Just a change order? All those opposed?
Of just the change order. Yeah, wait.
Wait, what are we voting on?
We're voting on the first motion, motion A, that was moved by CO, seconded by Tahar, to acknowledge receipt and to approve the change order.
But the change order, are we talking about, I'm sorry, just a point of information. Can I ask that at this question, at this moment?
Yes, but, yeah, go ahead.
So are we talking about, on page 5 of our packet, are we talking about item 2? The change order number 2, the scheduled portion? Is that what we're voting? Is that what you're? Oh, sorry. Would you like me to pass it down?
Go ahead, Mr. Campbell.
Also, change order number 2, this was the one that was handed out, that was part of the packet last meeting. I'm sorry, 2 meetings ago. and then it was subsequently at the dais this evening. So it's from Tetra Tech, dated February 10th, 2017, and it talks about schedule and change order number 2, also the progress payment number 13.
So if we're voting on this, we're essentially waiving liquidated damages? Is this?
No.
No?
No.
This is just the
Simply
change order?
Simply for change order number 2.
I see. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Everyone clear on that now?
Yes.
Okay. Just in the future, I would say this with great respect, but when we proceed on a vote, make sure if you don't understand what we're voting on, please bring that concern to the chair and we'll be happy to clarify. No big deal, just for future reference. So again, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries.
So you're the only name.
Apparently. Okay. We proceed to motion B, a motion to acknowledge receipt of the February 10th, 2017 memo from Tetra Tech to approve or not to approve the contractor's application for payment number 13 in the amount of $229,182.39.
Move to acknowledge and approve.
Thank you, Councilmember Seo. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Tahar. Staff already clarified this, but Mr. Brian Rubel or Mr. Scullin, do you care to make any additional comments at this time? It's not necessary, but if you'd like to, we would welcome those. Brian?
I'm a little concerned I heard something in error about the change order. I can address that now or later.
Please.
The change order as it's typed does include an extension of time. So in my opinion of reading that, by approving that, you are waiving any damages.
That was the question.
That was the question.
I
Right.
tried to get your attention.
I'm sorry, that was my understanding.
Okay.
So that was not my
That was
understanding.
not my understanding either.
That what we were voting on.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. Why don't you, I'm going to talk to the clerk about how we need to resolve
Okay.
that, but why don't you proceed to discussing motion B?
Yeah, motion B is I think is the pay application. So it's the full amount owed to Weiss minus the outstanding balance on the filter work, which I believe staff and the professionals would feel better about bringing to you in April after we have a little bit longer history with that filter repair. So it would pay Weiss everything but about $26,000 or $27,000.
Very good. Questions? Mr. Seo?
Just a comment, I guess. I want to thank both you, Mr. Rubel, and you, Mr. Smith, for the very detailed memo you provided us by way of explaining a number of the questions we had as regards this whole issue. And I guess what I wanted to say was that my conversation with other contractors in this field show that liquidated damages can be an entirely messy proposal. Number one, I think you have to show some damage to ourselves, actually, that we're seeking to redress with these damages. And I'm not sure that we have any damages, given the totality of the circumstances that have occurred. The fact that the project got delayed did not result in any direct monetary loss to the city, I don't believe. It didn't. As a matter of fact, it resulted in, I think, a quality project that brought forth additional assurances from the provider of the filter that is now in question. And by withholding at least that portion from the final payment, I think we're ensuring against any unforeseen, at this point, other difficulties with that same filtering system. So that's why I'm going to vote in favor of this and why I propose the motion.
Let me jump back to motion A for a moment. From my reading, and Brian, I'm looking for some affirmation from you. From my reading of the support materials and motion A and motion B, if you sought, again, just to clarify, if you sought or favored some sort of compensation in the terms of damages for the delayed work, you would have voted against motion A as it was presented.
In its entirety,
In
correct.
its entirety. There's really no reason to vote against motion B.
That's your decision.
Would that be a fair assessment, though, in your professional opinion?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
If you vote for motion B, you're voting to pay them the entire amount they're claiming to be owed.
Okay.
Motion B subtracted out the cost of the filter.
But it didn't subtract out liquidated
That's
damages.
correct. It would have to be revised.
Right.
The pay amount would have to be revised if you wish to charge damages. That is correct.
Okay. What we can do is we can entertain a motion to reconsider motion A. However, based on what I would assume the vote would be, that seems like an exercise in futility, because I think there were 3 of us who would have voted against motion A.
I'd like to go on the record, though.
Okay, we'll note that for the record, that Councilwoman Dillon would also have opposed motion A. And Ms. Mitchell, would you have as well? Okay.
Well, with the clarification now that clearly you're stating that we are waiving the damages as part of that change order, mine would be no, too.
Okay, then we probably should
A
entertain.
motion to reconsider requires that the maker of the motion be part of the prevailing side of that motion.
Well, he was for that particular motion, though.
I'm just saying that the mayor who voted no could not be the maker of the motion. It was a 6-1, if I recall correctly, right?
Correct.
So anybody else can make the motion
That's
to
right.
reconsider.
Okay.
I make the motion to reconsider.
Okay, it's been properly moved by Councilmember Gearbuck to reconsider motion A.
Second.
Seconded by
Mitchell.
Ms. Mitchell. Very good. So now, my understanding of Robert's rules is that we jump back now to discussion on A.
You have to take a vote.
Right.
On the motion to reconsider, then A is back on the table.
Right, okay. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Gearbuck, then Mr. Seo.
My concern is I had no problem making the change order, holding back the 26,000, but I still want to address liquidated damages, but not the way that it was proposed in this. I don't want to waive it, so that's why I'm not supporting this. I want to see that we address that to some degree. Because I don't know, from my own perspective, understand exactly what bumps in the road or whose fault. And this is a performance contract. The state of Michigan isn't going to reverse on their contract when they require it as part of their roads. And I mean, if there were extenuating circumstances beyond belief, I could understand it. But we extended it once and then had to extend it again. And I'm thinking, from my own perspective, that was considerate of us from that issue. And maybe it is a good job, but we expected a good job to be done. And I've seen so many screw-ups that have happened in the last 4 items.
You probably should vote on the motion to reconsider, and then it'll be back on the
Debate the
table.
merits.
Oh, well, I thought he said we pushed back to
Discussion
the...
you're having is appropriate.
Okay.
So all this motion then does is put it back on the table.
Right,
Right.
that's correct.
Let's vote on it.
If there's no subsequent discussion, it's been properly moved by Councilmember Gearboss, seconded by Councilwoman Mitchell to reconsider motion A in its entirety. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Ayes have it, and the motion carries 5-2. Did you get that vote?
Oh, no.
It would have been Mitchell, jump in if I'm incorrect. Mitchell, McClellan, Gearboss, Marl, and Dillon in favor of reconsidering the motion. Tahar, Mayor Pro Tem Tahar, and Councilmember Seo opposed. Okay? So motion A is now back on the table. Is there a motion to acknowledge receipt of the February 10th, 2017 memo from Tetra Tech and to approve or not to approve change order number 2, or is there a subsequent motion that someone would like to offer?
Move to acknowledge only.
Move to acknowledge by Councilwoman Mitchell.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman McClellan. Okay. Discussion. Comments? Ms. Mitchell, please.
So, I think the issues that are concerning to me are not that there were slowdowns because of the filters. And I noted that that was in the Weiss memo, that, it was the filters. But I think for me, there are other concerns of the deadline. And I don't think that necessarily the penalty is a black and white, all or nothing. It might be weighted. I don't know how those things are settled. But I still think that some of the delays were not in relation to the filters. And that's why I would be hesitant. I don't feel I would be responsible to the citizens in this town if I held a contractor to conduct less than myself. I keep my deadlines. And if I can't, then I come back and I start talking about it and make a new deadline. And I think that happened several times. So that's my thinking at this time. Thanks.
Additional comments, questions? I actually have one. Mr. Rubel, would you mind coming back to the podium? Tetra Tech and yourself personally, you've worked with a number of municipalities, with a number of contractors over the years, and I'm assuming that in that time period, issues like this have come up where contractors have not met deadlines, and the municipality has written into contracts that they can assess damages or penalties. I agree to a certain extent with Councilwoman Mitchell that it's not sort of an all or nothing kind of deal. Do you have any insights? This is sort of a clumsy question, and I apologize. Do you have any insights or examples you can give us of the past of similar incidents and what municipalities have decided to do?
Yes, we administer literally dozens of construction contracts a year. I have to say the preponderance of time, the municipalities do decide to waive the damages. The threat of the damage does generally accomplish an expedited completion. It may not be quite on schedule, but it does get the contractor's attention. I do recall that probably the last time we were involved with a project that imposed liquidated damages was your very own water plant a number of years ago. The contractor was late, and I do believe they paid damages in that case. That's been quite a few years. So unfortunately, it is what it is. Those are not imposed very regularly.
Yeah. It seems from the motion that was just taken and from my own skills, whatever they are, sort of doing a rough head count here at the dais, that there's consensus to impose some sort of penalty, hence the motion to reconsider motion A. So I think it's just determining what would be sufficient and appropriate for a majority of council. Ms. McClellan.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a question for Mr. Smith, but is there any, we're just talking about the liquidation of damages essentially, right? I mean, we're saying the rest of the change order could go through, but the liquidation of damages is the kind of the question at hand. Whether or not to say that we would impose them, but just the option to impose them.
Right, this change order, unless rewritten, would extend the deadline for completing the project so that there would be no liquidated damages. So if you're rejecting the change order as written, you should indicate what would be an acceptable change order in the alternative, or how you would amend this change order.
Provide you the clarification you're looking for?
I think so.
Just give us 1 second, but you're welcome to come up to the podium. Let's have Mr. CEO make a comment or ask a question.
I just was going to ask a question, Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, is it not true the liquidated damages are generally only imposed when there is some harm done as a result of the delay? In other words, school building was not completed in time for school to start classes in that building. A road was not completed in time for some significant event to take place that was otherwise impeded by the lack of the road being completed, or something of that sort? Or can it just be imposed based on a straight read of the contract that this was the date it was supposed to be completed and it was not completed?
Liquidated damages presumes that there's a damage, and both parties in agreeing to the contract are essentially saying there is a damage that the community suffers from delayed completion, and it's difficult to estimate or all the time quantify what those damages are. it presumes that there's some kind of damage in that delay. In this case, it appears that there were some additional engineering cost incurred for the additional time supervising the construction, although the engineer has also said that the project came in under budget, partially because of the quality of the work being done and some of the efforts made by the contractor. So, you know, that's the purpose of liquidated damages, so we don't have to have an argument about exactly what the damages are. Having said that, though, you are correct that the presumption is that it's offsetting some actual damage that you incur. If a road's open late, it really inconveniences the community to, you know, have to have detours. It's extra wear and tear on the detour route. It causes all kinds of other dislocations and problems, disrupts business and so forth. So there's a presumption there that some damage occurs by the delay. I don't know if I've answered your question, but the contract says that we can impose it for delays. It also provides to the contractor a mechanism to request extensions of the contract time, and they in fact availed themselves of that procedure, and in August of last year got an extension and so forth. So I hope that answers your question. I'm not trying to presume what the policy outcome ought to be of your discussion by answering the question, however.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, please.
Council members and Mayor, I'm Kevin Markart, Vice President Weiss. Mr. Seal, is that your name?
Yes, sir.
You're intuitive. You hit it right on the nail about everything you said. But there's a lot of circumstances that went on in this project that that was other than the filters. You know, we had some septic receiving units and some HV units also that were part of the owner's issues that we had to overcome. So I'm very disturbed by what's going on here. We've taken a stance to eliminate all of our delays and costs that we've impacted so we can get this project closed. And now we want to talk about liquidated damages. I'm just a little bit shocked here. I'm sitting back there going, oh, we think we've gone above and beyond, have extended general conditions way beyond where we should be, and exhausted cost and time to help you guys out, and now you want to damage us? I don't think that's quite fair. I really don't. We've eaten a lot of cost to make sure we minimize your cost. So that's my stance.
Thank you, sir. Any additional comments or discussions regarding the motion that's on the floor to acknowledge receipt? Mr. Gearbox.
Then I'm starting to wonder, did we get a full picture of the whole issue in terms of what delays were that could have caused them to have to do fixes for us? I'm at a point where we're getting 2 stories on every single project that has been presented to us. And I need to understand, are we getting the full story? Is there a problem on our side? Is there a problem on their side? Combination of both is where I was going on the liquidated damages. I'm not going for the full dollar amount, but I'm trying to understand, we've got operational issues in addition to stuff, because I'm tired of these concerns coming up. And at this point, I want to understand the whole story.
Well, help me understand, we're getting 2 stories on every issue that comes
If I've
up.
got, construction projects, every one that we've had, that now we have the rec center, we have an issue to deal with. We have had not.
But what were the 2 stories that you received?
Well, tonight, I'm hearing from them that they've had to do delays.
You said every issue that comes before.
Every issue, okay.
Here are 2 stories.
Here's the other issue. The rec center, if you want to clarify the rec center.
What were the 2 stories?
We have no responsibility taken by our staff for overseeing that in terms of our superintendent, because he was the one that monitored the contracts and so forth. We've got a similar issue here, because I don't recall this coming back to us for a second extension until when we got this request a month and a half ago, because the project really should have been extended through August 30th, I believe. Did we receive another extension after that request that we approved as council? I'm looking at you all.
did the council know, and certainly Mr. Rubel can speak to that as well. We're happy to rebut whatever they'd like to throw out there.
So I'm just from this perspective of, we're expecting a contract, and we're supposed to be approving and authorizing things based on a contractual arrangement, and yet we have an extension that's being requested 4 months after we've already requested and had an extension requested to us.
Well, let me just state for the record, I understand your frustration on this issue. I'm frustrated as well. But I want to be very clear. I categorically reject the notion that every issue that comes before us, there are two conflicting stories that are presented by staff or by an outside contractor. I asked you for examples. You couldn't even cite more than one. You cited the rec center, and all you could come up with was that somehow our superintendent should assume some sort of responsibility, which is not presenting a different story or a different narrative. So I just want to categorically reject that because I don't believe that it's accurate. You're entitled to your opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. I guess I'm going to ask if there is any additional discussion on the motion that's on the floor. And again, there is a motion to acknowledge receipt and to, actually just to acknowledge receipt of the February 10th, 2017 memo. Any discussion? Please, one more comment.
I assume everyone read this, correct? The letter from Weiss? Okay. There were 3 pieces of sole-sourced equipment, okay? This is equipment that we were specified that we had to buy. There was no choice for Weiss. We had to buy this equipment because Saline, through Tetra Tech or Saline, did their due diligence, okay? They said, buy this Weiss and install it, okay? So we had to work with the manufacturer to buy the exact piece of equipment that you wanted. If the manufacturer falls down, which you could argue that they did on this project, that does not fall on Weiss's shoulders. There's a shared responsibility there. That's like inviting a contractor into your home and you're doing a bathroom renovation. I'll just put it in those terms because maybe it's easier to understand. And you did all sorts of research to buy a fantastic state-of-the-art toilet. And I hate to say a toilet. And you said, out of all the 15 other manufacturers, or 10, or how many toilets there are out there, Mr. Contractor, I want you to bid this toilet, okay? So we do. The contractor comes in, he's doing your bathroom renovation, he bought that toilet. You know what, that toilet's late. It didn't come. 2 months late, just like these filters were 2 months late. And you said, well, I've got to have this done. Well, the filter finally shows up too late, 2 months late. Me as the contractor, we rush. We work overtime, weekends to get that toilet in, okay? Just like here. Problems start happening with that toilet. Now I can't finish the drywall. I can't finish the paint, okay? This is the toilet. Now you hold up my money and you tell me I'm at fault because this is the toilet that you specified, that I had to use. These delays and issues with this toilet don't fall solely on our shoulders. There's a shared responsibility here. We did everything we could to make sure that this project got completed as quickly and as timely as it could. Your staff was very appreciative of our efforts. Mr. Skull said when our superintendent, Scott Brill, left, it's going to be like we're a man down. And I guarantee you that was the case. It shows the dedication and effort that we took towards this project. So to hold us responsible for not only the filters, but the other sole sourced equipment, the septage unit, that was delayed as well, through no fault of Weiss. It was the manufacturer. We're working with your suppliers, and they showed up late with the panels, and that delayed some work. The HV unit came out, and there were issues with that, another sole source piece of equipment. In addition to that, the digester tank, it was specified that we use a mortar repair, okay? A mortar repair, we go in, it was 2 days worth of work. Well, in lieu of that, you went with a better repair method. You did the mortar repair, but then you wanted a nice epoxy coating on the repair. That required that mortar to sit on that wall in that digester tank for 28 days. We couldn't touch it. In order to put that epoxy on, the proper quality control required 28 days that we sit and wait. Once that was done, then the roof gets put on. Then we pour a tank. Then we did the asphalt pavement because we didn't want to screw up the pavement while we have a crane there lifting the precast onto that tank. There's sequences on this project that we had to live by as well. At the filter building, we could not take that existing filter out until those filters were physically on site. Okay? So that means that the filter supplier that you wanted that unfortunately shipped late, 2 months late, instead of us getting them in April, allowing us plenty of time to get it installed, they showed up June 1st. We issued, well, June 1st, that just allowed us to shut the filter down. Then we had to cut into the brick masonry wall, demo the existing filters, which by the way had a lot of grout that we had no idea was there, which was an extra that was negotiated as part of a comprehensive agreement away. But we worked extremely hard overtime and weekends, and we ate those costs, not Saline. And we got those filters operational for startup by July 15th, which was the completion date originally. However, as part of the requirement for sequencing, and the reason why we asked for an extension of time is because after those filters were successfully operational for a period of time, then we had to demolish the other side of the old filter beds. So until this sole source piece of equipment could operate and eventually get accepted, we couldn't move on with our contract work. Well, unfortunately, the filter had issues. We all know that. And Nova addressed them. They were on the spot every time an issue came up, and we were right there providing updates to the city. Every day we sent in emails with the update. What's going on? Is stuff shipping in from overseas? Where's the stuff? What's the status? And we continued to put as much pressure as we could to make sure that this equipment got installed and operational as quickly as possible. So with the filters, they were accepted in September. In October, issues unfortunately happened again with the filters. Those were warranty issues. Those filters were accepted. So the warranty on those filters by contract started after acceptance. So from that point forward, that warranty, the owner's warranty, your warranty, was delaying Weiss from being able to perform our work. We had to literally eventually coordinate taking those filters out of the building and having them rebuilt. You didn't get a repaired filter, in my opinion. You got an upgraded filter. Those filters out there are nothing like the ones that were originally shipped. Okay? So after those filters finally got rebuilt and put back in, that allowed us to finish the work and then repaint and do all sorts of additional contract work in addition to additional work that was requested by Saline. After the completion dates, we were doing additional work for you guys. Okay? We had no idea that we were going to be at this point where there would be legitimate discussion about liquidated damages after all the effort, time, expense that we did performing additional work afterwards, after the contract completion dates. We figured, just like I've been doing this for 20 years, and reasonable minds always seem to prevail. And in this, I would hope that that would be the case, and you don't penalize Weiss Construction or the suppliers, or try to penalize any suppliers that you have to have relationships in the future. Because I guarantee you that will not go over well. What I can say is that we did our very best for you, and we got it completed as quickly as possible, given the issues that were presented due to the equipment that you wanted me to install. I hope that sheds some light on this, because the delays associated with this are not all on Weiss. And there's other delays too that will get brought out if this unfortunately continues in this direction.
I'm taken back by even the thought there was liquidated damage conversation even brought up, knowing the circumstances, and hopefully you guys knew the circumstances. Obviously, you did not. And now that you hear this side of the story, to penalize us is just not a professional way to go. It's just not. And like you said, you have to prove to me now that you got damaged. I can prove to you I got damaged. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional discussion or comments? Ms. McClellan?
I think from what I'm hearing, and I think from what Mr. Gearbow brought up before, is I feel like we have a disconnect between design issues and project completion. And I'm not sure that it's necessarily anyone's fault. I don't know. But obviously there's maybe a communication issue. I don't know. It's just we are responsible to the taxpayers, and so I think that's what, where our responsibility falls, and what, not necessarily that, Weiss should be responsible completely, but where is the problem, I guess, is where my question is at this point.
Okay. Mr. Hart?
Mr. Gearbout raised a question a moment ago that I had in my mind as I read through all of this in preparation for the meeting, and it slipped away. But so thanks to Mr. Gearbout for raising the issue. Why didn't we get a request for another extension?
I believe the original date was July 15th. It was extended a month to August 15th. On August 15th, we did get another letter from Weiss, at which then Tetra Tech met with city staff and we reviewed that letter. And that request was for another 30 days of time. I was not optimistic they were going to make that additional 30 days, just knowing the amount of work that was still occurring there. So, and we were all getting frustrated too. So we met with staff, we directed Weiss to get it done as quickly as they possibly could, because we didn't know if it was going to be 40 days or 50 days or 60 days. They got it done October 17th. So we did get direction. We did get another request. That request was not met. I think the direction from Weiss to get it done quickly was very helpful to get it done as quick as it did get done.
But council did not receive that request, as I understand it.
I apologize. I maybe should have recommended I come back and indicate that to council.
If you have one last comment, please.
Sorry, I'll make it quick.
No, that's fine.
The extension of time was based off of a projection of the work to complete. I believe at the end of August, we were 96% complete. There was not a tremendous amount of work left to complete. However, the work that was remaining was from the sole source supplier. We asked for, when are you going to give us that panel so we can make this equipment work? And you know what? That is what we based our request for extension of time on. But again, they dropped the ball. And unfortunately, we were forced to come back and ask for more, okay? It was not our intent. Our intent was to get the equipment when they said and finish the work. However, they did not. The other quick point that I want to make is that, just as FYI, is that the negotiated agreement that I had with Saline and with the filter, that I think everyone agrees, a 3-year parts and labor warranty on these filters is unheard of in the industry, okay? Weiss worked very hard to get Nova to do that for you guys, okay? We wanted that for you guys, okay? They ended up giving it to us. However, that deal was based off of us getting paid our full amount, okay? So, for what it's worth, please keep that in mind.
Let me say this, and hopefully we can move forward here on a vote on motion A and then subsequently motion B. First of all, I'm so confused, I'm almost cross-eyed at the moment. But I do have to say to the gentleman from Weiss Construction, your presentation, your sentiments this evening have painted a better picture for me in regards to the situation. And clearly, there have been times during this process where there has been a breakdown in communication. And I don't think that was done out of malice, but there is a bit of an issue with process here that I think we can all learn from. I also want to say to the gentleman from Weiss, please don't be offended by council considering damages, because we do, as Ms. McClellan indicated moments ago, we do have a responsibility to our taxpayers, to our citizens, to make sure that things are completed on time and that they're done well. Now, in saying that, there is absolutely no doubt Weiss Construction has an outstanding reputation. There's no reason to deny that. It would be untrue to deny it. So I'm willing, I guess, based on what I've learned, I'm willing to cut you a little slack and to proceed with change order number 2 and then the subsequent motion. Again, I would ask, don't be offended by our discussion, because we owe it to ourselves and to our taxpayers not to be pushovers and to make sure that things are done in an appropriate frame or time frame. But again, you did excellent work. We appreciate that, and there were things beyond your control. I apologize for the confusion this evening to my colleagues. I'll take responsibility for that. This is certainly a process that we can learn from. We do have a motion on the floor to acknowledge receipt. I think that was moved by McClellan, seconded by, it was actually moved by Mitchell, seconded by McClellan, but before we vote.
When you have the next motion, I'd just like to clarify a couple things.
After this motion?
Yeah,
Okay.
this is just acknowledging receipt.
So all we're doing is acknowledging receipt right now. So it's been properly moved by Mitchell, seconded by McClellan to acknowledge receipt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. Next, what is enumerated on the agenda would be a motion to approve or not to approve change order number 2.
Move to approve change order 2.
I'll let Tahar be the mover, CO be the second. Mr. Smith.
In hearing the discussion tonight, and you've got a memo from Brian and me, and you've got some other information, let me try to categorize what's happened here in a way that might be helpful to you. The city spec'd, as part of its bid specs, certain suppliers of equipment, okay? That was spec'd after a good design process, after interviewing people, after considering carefully what materials, what supplies, what component parts were best for this project. There were certain of those parts, particularly the filters, where the structure has to be designed around that particular equipment. Okay, the building's shaped differently depending on which type of filter you have, and the electrical and the HVAC and the plumbing and other aspects of the building are different depending on that. So everybody did their jobs. The contractor bid the spec'd equipment. The contractor was relying on the equipment supplier being able to meet the promised deadlines for that equipment. Okay? The equipment didn't come in. That's not a Tetra Tech problem. That's not a city staff problem. That's not a contractor problem. Okay? When the supplier didn't deliver the equipment that we spec'd on a timely basis, that caused some delays in the process. There were other delays they've identified that Brian Rubel doesn't think necessarily were excused delays, but there's no question that the equipment caused significant delays, and some of that equipment delay caused a delay after the initial deadline and the initial extended deadline. It came in so late. Now, we had asked Weiss to come back and detail on a day-to-day basis how much delay was caused by what. And they said that they really couldn't do that because doing that, then just glosses over the extra work and so forth they put in on weekends and that kind of thing to make up for that delay, and the extra work they did otherwise for you in trying to still meet the timeframes. Okay? You had the last time the recommendation from Tetra Tech and from city staff that you make the payment without liquidated damages, and it was in part because of the good work that Weiss had done. You questioned the last time why there wasn't a better explanation of the reasons for the delay, and we attempted to get that and attempted to get a daily breakdown of all of that, and were unable to do it. What you see is what Weiss provided. What you heard tonight is a further explanation of what they provided. And then you've got the analysis that Brian and I did to try to shed some light on the process. Now, I'm not trying to tell you how you should or shouldn't vote on it, because that's a policy decision you have to make. But I'm trying to make sure you understand at least what happened, and the reason for the delay is not a problem with staff, it's not a problem with Tetra Tech, it's not a problem with Weiss. Should Weiss have come back and asked for other extensions? Could they have done that? Should that have occurred? Probably. But in the great scheme of things, I've been doing this 3.5 decades now. And in the great scheme of things, in any of these projects, you have a lot of collaborative work going back and forth and people rushing to meet deadlines. And the last thing that design folks want to do and construction engineers want to do or contractors want to do is come back and say, may I, if they think they're just about to get it done. Okay? Now that's not an excuse, but it's an explanation of why they didn't come back here. Because when you're working it, you're trying to work it out and get it done. You're not trying to come back here and dot I's and cross T's necessarily. And this is a bit of a sloppy, collaborative process that goes on. It's not a nice, neat thing. The lawyer part of me doesn't like that part of the process because it doesn't dot the I's and cross the T's. But in reality, that's the way it has to work. And the analogy, when you're working on your house and working with your contractor, do you put through change orders all the time? Probably not. You work with them and he tells you, well, I'm going to give you a little here, if you give me a little here, and you get it all worked out, right? And that's how this process happens. So I'm just trying to explain, not to tell you how to vote.
Well, that's helpful. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. Subsequent discussion. There's a motion on the floor, moved by Tahar, seconded by CO to approve change order number 2. Ms. Mitchell?
I just wanted to say and state that I appreciate Mr. Smith's comments. I appreciate Mr. Avery and Mr. Markart and your time, and I will be voting to support the full payment.
Additional comments? Mr. Gearbaugh?
Yeah, I appreciate everyone's comments and everything, because I was trying to get to the point of where we're all contributing to it and to really understand what was the contributing factors to it. And I think for me, that's why I had no problem with the change order and going the other route, but now we understand at least there's more pieces to it, how it balances out. But I agree, we did a contract, now we've got the idea of how it clarifies. And I think, from my perspective, I'm extremely sensitive because of all the legal issues that you're aware of that we've done on our last 2 large projects that have just put me on edge for everything.
But you know, I want to say this one is quite different than that, because we've got Nova standing up to try to make it all right, and you've got Weiss standing behind it, trying to stand up and make it all right. So it's different than the other situations where we had people running for the baseboards, right?
And tonight I feel comfortable because we have them actually explaining to us. Everybody's been on the same table. So, again, I agree with Ms. Mitchell that I'm going to vote for this.
Any additional discussion? Ms. Tahar?
Yes, well, I was in favor of approving the change order initially. And I will say that what I've heard tonight just confirms the opinion that I brought with me to the meeting, that in fact, we have not been damaged, and the citizens, taxpayers of the city have not been damaged by this process, but we actually have, except maybe for the actual filters, we have a better product because of Weiss's activities. So I'm continuing to be in favor of approving this.
Thank you. Ms. McClellan?
Yeah, I appreciate the discussion, and I appreciate Mr. Smith's comments. I think, you know, again, going back to, it's our responsibility to make sure that we have all the information and that we have, you know, the proper information to make a wise decision on behalf of the taxpayers. So, and I think that through the kind of messy discussion this evening, we've gotten there, and I will be voting for this. So, thank you.
Anything else? I will say this to piggyback on your comments about the sloppy process, and I don't disagree with that, and I'll assume responsibility as the leader, the mayor of council. I will say, however, that motions to reconsider, while somewhat cumbersome, are perfectly appropriate, and council members, all of us, should put our pride on the shelf, and if we think we voted incorrectly or did something wrong or want additional information, we should offer motions to reconsider to go back to substantive issues that have an impact on the people we represent. So that's just my 2 cents. If there's nothing further, it was properly moved by Tahar, seconded by CO, to approve change order number 2. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. And actually, we do, friends, have a motion on the floor, moved by CO, seconded by Tahar, to acknowledge receipt of the February 10th, 2017 memo from Tetra Tech and to approve the contractor's application for payment number 13 in the amount of $229,182.39. Mr. CO, you're still comfortable offering that motion?
Yes, sir, I am.
Mayor Pro Tem Tahar, you're still comfortable as a second?
I'm considering whether we should change the amount to the full $255,973.
I think we're comfortable that we'll be back for the other 29,000 and change, maybe at your next meeting or the meeting after that, but we think we would like to see the Nova filters work just a little more reliably for another 2 to 4 weeks and go from there. I'm told by staff and by Tetra Tech that all indications are that they're great, working fine, don't have any problems, but before we make that final payment, it probably behooves us just to have a little more track record on it, just a little bit.
Okay.
You're good?
I'm good with
Okay.
it as it stands.
I think, does anyone from staff care to make any additional comments? I think you're good. All right. Bless your heart. Any subsequent discussion on this motion? Mr. Gearbaugh.
I just appreciate White's attempt and success in getting an extension on our warranty. I think that's part of our liquidated aspect that I was looking towards, with some kind of settlement, and by doing that extension, I think that helps. So I appreciate that greatly.
Thank you, Mr. Gearbaugh. Additional discussion? Hearing none, then we'll proceed to vote. It's been properly moved by CO, seconded by Tahar, to acknowledge receipt and to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. Let's move on, shall we, to new business item 17-47. This is request to waive sewer fees from water bill. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the March 16th, 2017 memo from Treasurer Bennett and the March 13th, 2017 letter from Rebecca Elwin, and to approve or not to approve the waiver of sewer fees for the property at 114 East Henry in the amount of $1,101.62.
I'll move to acknowledge the receipt for right now.
All right.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilwoman Dillon. Ms. Bennett, do you care to make any comment?
I don't have any comments, but I have some, I'll answer questions if there's some questions you want to consider.
Very good. We'll start with Mr. Gearbaugh.
Just real quick, so there was like 272,000 gallons of water. I know, where did that all go by chance? I'm just, if it went all into the lawn, did it really go into lawn, or did it go over properties?
I'm sure it went over properties. It was noted by neighbors, and the letter was attached, that there was water coming out of that spigot, so.
But I mean, it wasn't, we don't have anybody that said they saw it running right into our city sewer system on the outside?
No.
Okay.
Very
I just
good.
want to make sure where it went.
And I do want to just quickly give you, this give you some real quick feedback. I know we've all been here a little bit, but since we have done away with the sewer credits and stuff like that, in the past, we have offered, and we have, you, the council, has approved these type of waivers when there has been any kind of proof that the water did not get treated by the sewage. So this is just relieving the sewer portion. The amount, you know, they would still obviously pay for the water that did run through the plant.
That actually was going to be my question. As I recall, probably when Mr. Gearbaugh and I were both city council members, I remember a situation very similar to this. I was going to go through my records this afternoon, and I just lost track of time.
We've had them in residents, we've had them in businesses where lines have broke, we've had them in different, there was a very similar one on Henry Street where the water was running out the yard. When the DPW got there, it was all over the inside of the vacated house.
Yep.
So.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Dillon, did you have a question?
I did not.
No? Okay, Mr. Seal?
The only thing that convinces me in this is that we even allow for the installation of a second water meter for sprinkling of lawns, where we know that the sewer system is not going to be affected by the water that's being pumped out onto the lawn. And we charge a lower rate. We only charge the water rate for that, not the sewer rate. So to me, this is a situation, although not directly akin, very similar. So I'd be in favor of granting this request. Excuse me.
Very good. Ms. Mitchell, question or comment?
Yes, please. Can I have a clarification? So the Ms. Elwine's letter talks about a bill of $2,600, right?
The bill was estimated to Ms. Elwine, and actually I have at $2,655.97. That's the full water bill. That includes the readiness to serve and the consumption on the full 270, my glasses are giving me a headache, 272,000 for water and sewer. So we would reduce that 2,000 by the 1,101.62.
Okay, just making sure.
No problem.
No, good
Let's be clear.
Yeah.
Additional questions for Treasurer Bennett? Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Any subsequent discussion on the motion to acknowledge receipt? No, that it's been properly moved by Gearboss, seconded by Dillon to acknowledge receipt of the March 16, 2017 memo and the March 13, 2017 letter from Ms. Rebecca Elwin. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. Is there a motion now to approve or not to approve? Do you want to approve, Mr. Gearboss? To approve. Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Seal. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, then we'll proceed to vote. It's been properly moved by Gearboss, seconded by Seal to approve the waiver of sewer fees in the amount of $1,000, $101.62. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Bennett.
Well, I'm here for the next couple.
Oh, yes, you are. Hang tight then.
It's the Mickey Joe Show.
Yeah, I guess so. We move on to new business item 17-48. This is fiscal year 18 operating and capital budgets for the Saline Area Fire Department. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the March 15, 2017 memo from Treasurer Bennett regarding the Fire Department FY18 operating and capital budgets, and to approve or not to approve the proposed Saline Area Fire Department operating and capital improvement budgets for fiscal year 2017-2018 in the total amount of $416,251, and to recommend that the Saline Area Fire Department Board adopt or not adopt said budgets.
Move to acknowledge, approve, and adopt.
Second.
Boy, I'm going to give that one to McClellan. So it was moved by Councilmember Gearboss, seconded by McClellan, to acknowledge, to approve, and to adopt. Ms. Bennett.
There's no comments unless you have questions. This is their annual budget. I think the next motion will address a little bit more on the special assessment. As you may recall, the council approved, the voters of the city approved a 1 mil special assessment levy that we could exercise. We do, at this point, initiate the first step of that special assessment notice by sending out the notices that we may consider that in the event. So right now, when we do the budget, and in the past years, the operating millage from the fire department comes out of our general fund, but we do keep that 1 mil process going until said time in the budget process where we determine if we will need that or not. So that's just a quick explanation on the next agenda item as well.
Very good. Well, Ms. Dillon is welcome to chime in as the other representative from the city of Saline on the Saline Area Fire Department Executive Board. But let me just say that, of course, the dollar amount does reflect the additional employees that have been brought onto the department in the last 12 months. That was a good, positive change for the department and ultimately for the city. And I can say as a long-term member of the fire board and the current chair that I think it's an impeccably well-run department. And we should feel very blessed and fortunate that we get that department and the services that they provide for just over $400,000. So, Ms. Dillon, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add.
I just echo exactly what you say.
Very good. Okay. Any subsequent discussion or questions for Ms. Bennett?
Just real quick.
Please.
What would be the, and this probably will be part of the next motion too, but our budget's now 416 or whatever. What's 1 mil generating for us right now?
This would be, to fund this 416, it is about 1.088 mils. So it is over the 1 mil.
So it basically would cover, okay. I
Yes.
just want to make sure how much more we're receiving.
Yep.
Thank you.
Additional discussion or questions? No, then we'll proceed to vote. It's been properly moved by Gearboss, seconded by McClellan to acknowledge receipt, to approve, and to adopt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 17-49. This is special assessment resolution for the Saline Area Fire Department. This will be a motion to approve and adopt or not to adopt resolution number 1, special assessment for fire protection 2017-2018, setting a public hearing on Monday, May 1, 2017, to hear and consider any objection to the city's proposed share of fire protection in the amount of $416,251 for fiscal year 2017-2018.
Move to approve and adopt.
Thank you, Councilmember Gearboss. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by, I'll get you on the next one, Ms. Dillon. Mr. CO, Ms. Bennett sort of addressed this already. Do you care to make any additional comments?
No.
Any questions for our city treasurer? No questions. Any subsequent discussion on the motion? No, then we'll proceed to vote. It's been properly moved by Gearboss, seconded by CO to approve and to adopt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. Moving on to new business item 17-50, resolution of support for participation in the Redevelopment Ready Communities RRC program. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the March 16, 2017 memo from Treasurer Bennett regarding Redevelopment Ready Community Resolution, and to approve and adopt or not to approve the resolution of intent to participate in the RRC program.
Move to acknowledge and to approve and adopt.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Gearboss, seconded by Councilwoman Mitchell. Ms. Bennett, do you care to make any comment?
I do. This is kind of exciting news. As you may recall, and some of you maybe weren't here in July when we had the MEDC come out and discuss readiness redevelopment with Saline. But basically, real quickly, what that does is allow for our policies and our processes for how we do redevelopment or we welcome developers into our community is reviewed by the state of Michigan. I have went through the training, Todd has went through the training, Riley from Saline Main Street also has went through the training. And then we recently performed a self-checklist, and I feel that we are in really good shape. There might be some little things that we need to tweak. One of the items that we'll have to come back to you guys probably on is like a public participation plan. We have a great process of including the public, but we don't really have it in a plan document. So little things like that we may be tweaking, and then whatever else the state will do. So this resolution, this year actually, MEDC announced that for municipalities to receive state incentives, we have to be engaged. And by adopting this resolution and having the state check off our readiness redevelopment list of items, that gets us in the engaged process. So that's a good step in the right direction. So I'm excited to start this process and appreciate your support.
Very good. Well, let me just say, regarding the broad concept of being redevelopment ready and embracing investment in jobs, we have some tangible examples of late of how we went the extra mile to be accommodating, and I think that's a wonderful thing. And I also want to note for the record, Ms. Bennett, I think everyone at the dais was at the charity preview, the grand opening for Imagine on Friday evening, which was an absolutely marvelous event. But I have to tell you, I've been to a lot of business openings over the years, and I think that was the first where the CEO and president of the company in his opening remarks decided to single you out as helping to bring that investment to the community and being so accommodating and helpful when you could. And that was just a wonderful testament to your efforts and to the cities as a whole. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What questions do we have for Ms. Bennett? Ms. Dillon, please.
Is there any cost to participate in this program?
No.
No. Okay. And are things that we need to tweak, do they impact us at all, like missing deadlines or anything like that?
No, and let me say the things that I think we need to tweak. That's based on our self-evaluation, and Gary Rubel, myself, and Riley went through the evaluation. Todd's kind of, looked over it too. That's my opinion. I'm not sure what the state will come back with. But it's not really processes, it's just more like plans and having stuff. What we've done is a great example. It's our Michigan Ave project, when we had public hearings and stuff like that, we have great examples, but we don't really have a plan in place.
Right.
So just, I feel, in my opinion, what's gonna happen is we're just gonna have to adopt some plans and get some, processes that we have done in the past adopted.
So as long as we're on the path, we're in good shape, because
Yep.
like master plan was like the
And, yeah,
hurdle that
master
I
plan
was-
is one of them, which I believe is gonna be coming back up here pretty quick and be adopted yet this year. So we've taken a lot of the positive steps. It's just gonna be fine tuning it and getting the plans adopted, I think.
Fantastic, thank you.
I could be
Just
wrong.
please.
The state hasn't looked at it yet. There's my disclaimer.
But once we have those type of things in place, then there's just a maintenance that we really have to maintain, just review.
Yep, it's, and I don't have that document with me, but it's like a 3-year renewal, and then you just kind of go through the evaluation process again and make sure that they haven't changed any of the qualifications or anything like that.
Okay, great. Great
Yep.
job.
Anything else? All right. Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Any subsequent discussion on the motion moved by Gearboss, seconded by Mitchell, to acknowledge receipt, to approve, and to adopt? No, then we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously.
Okay.
Have a good evening, Ms.
Thank
Bennett. We move on to new business item 17-52. This is cell tower agreement amendment. This is a motion to acknowledge receipt of the resolution number 17-52, resolution approving a second amendment to the American Cell Tower Asset Sub LLC ground lease to accommodate 600 North Maple Development, and to approve or not to approve resolution number 17-52.
Move to acknowledge?
Moved by Dylan to simply acknowledge. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Gearboss. Mr. Campbell, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a long time coming. I look at Mr. Smith because he and I have been kind of wrestling with this for quite a while. But been a great effort, partnership, if you will, between working with Mr. Smith, the developer, and city staff to work with American Tower. You may recall on 600 Maple on city property, and will continue to be city properties, which will become now a postage stamp, if you will, that has the cell tower. There is part of the agreement is an access easement rights, because American Tower needs to have ability to access their tower for maintenance and upkeep. And so when we went to them and said, hey, this development is coming, this residential development, and we wrestled back and forth for quite a while. But at the end of the day, one of the things that I had communicated to council a while back is that they were looking for additional time, because they currently have a 25-year lease. They're 5-year renewable terms, excuse me, and they wanted more. But after discussion with council, and some of you that have been here for a number of years now, where we've brought, I think, at least 2, maybe 3 options to extend the lease, or other companies wanting to purchase the lease, and council has been committed to their position of no, we want to keep it as it is. However, we did, what we proposed, as I've mentioned to council, is that of up to potentially one 5-year term. So instead of 25 years, it would be 30 years for the lease between the city and American Tower. And that was the item between the city and American Tower. And then as you read through the amendment, the majority of the other items pertain to the developer, the location of the easement, the temporary easement, for phase 1, then versus phase 2, as far as if the sound of the backup generator is too loud, the developer then at their own cost, then has the ability to put up some soundproofing, those types of things. Again, those are no cost to the city. Those are all being shouldered by the developer for those costs. And so we would propose this amendment to the existing lease between the city and American Tower. And I know myself or Mr. Smith would be happy to do our best to answer any questions.
Excellent. Well, this is a long time coming, but glad it finally came to fruition. Appreciate your work on this, gentlemen. Questions? Ms. Dillon, do you have some questions?
I do.
Please.
I always have questions. Numerous times it says without cost to the tenant. So who is paying for all of these things?
The developer.
The city's not incurring any of these costs?
That's correct.
Okay, that's good. That's a great answer.
Absolutely. I agree.
And then you already answered my other question, so that's all I have. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. Additional questions? No? Okay. Any discussion on the motion moved by Dillon, seconded by Gearbuck to simply acknowledge receipt? No, then we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. How about a motion now to approve or not to approve resolution number 17-52?
So moved.
We'll just switch it around. Gearbuck will be the mover and Dillon will be the second. Any discussion?
That's to approve.
Mr. Gearbuck? Say again?
That's to approve?
Yes, yes, unless I heard incorrectly. You wanted to approve, right? You wanted to second the
Yes.
approval? Okay, very good. My ears didn't deceive me. Mr. Gearbuck, please.
At times I get crazy about things, but I am really appreciative of your work on this thing because I think this is a great development, but unfortunately, I know you had to deal with real corporate, how shall I say, real corporate approach. So I'm glad you were able to work it through and at least get the achievements of what we as council wanted to have happen too. So much appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Gearbuck. Anything else? That was perfectly stated. Good, like I said, I'm glad that this finally came to fruition. And I think it's a really positive development for that parcel. We're really looking forward to that particular development. If there's nothing further, it's been properly moved by Gearbuck, seconded by Dillon to approve resolution number 17-52. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. The last formal action item is new business item 17-53. This is a resolution opposing elimination and reduction of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development programs, which are vital to Washtenaw County residents. This is a motion to acknowledge receipt of the resolution opposing elimination and reduction of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development programs, which are vital to Washtenaw County residents, and to approve or not to approve the resolution.
Move to acknowledge and approve.
All right, we'll do CO as the mover and Mitchell as the second, and actually, to give credit where credit's due, this is Ms. Tahar's baby, so I'll yield the floor to her to talk about her work crafting this resolution and the rationale behind it.
Okay, thank you. I have lots of notes, but in the interest of speedy time, I'll keep it to a minimum. So the resolution originated with the Washtenaw Urban County Executive Committee. I am a member of that committee as the mayor's designee from Saline. And some of us know about the urban county. Council members who may not know about the urban county, I will be happy to talk to you in more detail about it. But essentially, the Washtenaw Urban County is responsible for administering and distributing housing and urban development funding that comes back to the county and is based on the membership not every unit of government in Washtenaw County is a member of the urban county. So it's based on who are members. And primarily those funds are community development block grant funds. That was $1.8 million this year. And home funds, which was just over $900,000. CDBG funds benefit low-income neighborhoods and residents in a variety of ways and projects. And home funds are specified to be used for creation of affordable housing. So Saline, having a small population, is not a big player in the urban county. Our presence there brings about $11,000 a year into the urban county, which can be used here in Saline, but if we don't use it, it's used elsewhere in the county. We do benefit, we have benefited from our membership in the urban county since 2012, and the most dramatic one of those, in my mind, is the fact that when the Saline Area Social Service received its new facility, the director was able to apply through the urban county process and receive $40,000 in funds to help with the renovation of that building and the remodeling that made it possible to use it. That was key in getting other help and other funding. And so our membership in the urban county alerted us to that possibility, but really it was Jamel Akins who did all the heavy lifting with the application process. And we got $40,000 because we had been a member for 4 years, and had not used funds for other projects. So we were able to receive the $40,000. And then there are other programs that benefit individual homeowners in various ways that I won't go into. I will also mention other units of government in the county. The County Board of Commissioners passed a resolution along these lines last week. City of Ann Arbor is taking it up tonight. City of Ypsilanti tomorrow night. Pittsfield Township is also considering it, as well as Superior Township. So we would be joining with our neighbors in expressing our views. So I heartily encourage a vote in favor.
Let me just say, first of all, I appreciate your leadership on this, Ms. Tahar, and turning around this resolution rather quickly. I mean, I first received an email from you on Tuesday or Wednesday, and I was just very impressed that we were able to get it on the agenda this evening. I wholeheartedly support this resolution, and I have to be honest with my colleagues on council and my fellow citizens. I'm really alarmed with some of the things that we continue to hear out of Washington of late, specifically as it relates to certain individuals and their budget priorities. Sort of adopting a survival of the fittest, kind of a social Darwinism type attitude that, so long as I make it great and if everyone else falls through the cracks, so be it. And I don't find that to be acceptable. In fact, I find it to be abhorrent, quite frankly. And the Department of Housing and Urban Development initiates and funds some very, very valuable programs that not only benefit Saline and Washtenaw County, but communities and municipalities throughout the nation. So I think this is a solid resolution, and I hope that the vote is unanimous. And again, I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Tar for her leadership on this. Additional comments? No? Then we'll proceed to vote. It's been properly moved by CO, seconded by Mitchell to acknowledge receipt and to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. We move on to the discussion portion of our agenda. Commission, committee, and task force reports from council members. Oh, please, Ms. Mitchell.
Hello. I'm just pulling it up on my phone. Okay. The River Raisin Watershed Delegate Meeting is coming up in April. I have been reading materials in preparation, and I'm carpooling, just because. I attended the Historic District Commission meeting. The commission is working on extending the current historic area that's on Henry Street, and they are in the process of engaging the people who would be affected by that and having them be part of the commission, because It's the commission's desire to work collaboratively rather than authoritatively over the area. I am working on a different subcommittee to work on a mission statement and also increase the social media presence of the Historic District Commission. And finally, we have been making strides on the Human Rights Ordinance. I've had several meetings with interested community stakeholders, including business owners and private citizens who greatly favor this ordinance. We have been writing a document, a comparison and research spreadsheet, and that is nearly complete. And we will be meeting as a subcommittee this week. So we're moving forward with that.
Thank you. Excellent. I should also note, if I'm not mistaken, for the first time in many years, we have a full commission. The HDC, I think, has no outstanding vacancies.
I can't confirm nor deny that statement.
Do they? I don't think they do anymore. Yeah, I think we got that one filled. So needless to say, it's a great group of people, and we're glad that you're serving as our liaison. Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Ms. Dillon.
The Drug Task Force will be putting on a forum this coming Wednesday, March 22nd, at Saline High School Auditorium from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's entitled Paths and Pitfalls, and it is geared towards middle school and high school students and their parents.
Very good. Thank you. Other commission, committee, or task force reports? Just one, and I was reminded of this by Ms. Tahar before tonight's meeting, and I think Mr. Gearbaugh would share the sentiment. The Planning Commission actually has a rather robust agenda on Wednesday evening, and before our regular meeting, which begins at 7, we will be having a work meeting to specifically discuss the Maple Road development and how we apply our recently adopted PUD. And that, unlike most site plans, will have to come to council for review and for approval. And because this development is quite complex and multidimensional, and because we want to make sure we do our first PUD, we want to make sure our first PUD is successful, we would welcome your participation in that work meeting. It begins at 6 p.m. It's going to be casual, similar to the work meetings, similar to the work meeting that we had this evening. I believe we will be feeding planning commissioners, but we would welcome your insights and your suggestions. And that will be both a discussion item during the work meeting, and then it will hopefully be a subsequent action item as part of the regular agenda. So that's 6 p.m. this Wednesday. Okay? If there are no additional reports or announcements regarding boards and commissions, how about other reports? Ms. McClellan, please.
I don't know if John is going to come up and talk about it later, but the Saline Salutes is this Friday. Starts at 6 p.m. Is it still tickets available?
Yes.
Okay.
You hanging on to talk about that at the end? Okay. She stole your thunder. Okay. Any other reports or announcements? I actually failed to, go ahead.
Yeah, that's tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night is another.
Parks Commission?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about the Parks Commission
Yes.
liaison?
I was
Jim's
thinking
here.
that
Make
that was
Jim
the
talk
planning
about
thing. No, I don't. I apologize.
Mr. Peters, I apologize for putting you on the spot. Is there is the public encouraged to attend, or council members encouraged to attend tomorrow night's Parks Commission? Is there a substantive discussion on Salt Springs Park?
Absolutely, everybody is welcome. Beckett Rader is going to give a presentation on the development plans, the master plans of Salt Springs Park. And until we get that passed, I'll move on to City Council.
Okay, and that's 7 p.m. tomorrow evening here in the council chambers.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yep. No. The other thing, it's a report, it's not related to any boards and commissions. I did want to acknowledge, I should have acknowledged this at our last council meeting, it was my distinct privilege and honor to present Pete and Lori Tormino with a key to the city. In fact, I believe Mr. Gearbaugh and Ms. Dillon were at the function. It was the Saline Main Street annual meeting and party uptown. We sort of surprised them. I did surprise them with the key to the city to acknowledge their retirement, the sale of both Mangiamo's and Mickey's Dairy Twist. But clearly, two individuals who have done a great deal for this community over the past several decades, and we wish them the very best in their retirement. I know they're going to spend a lot more time with their family, but if you see them out and about, I'm speaking to both my council colleagues and to the general public. Please thank them for their years of service and congratulate them on receiving a key to the city. I can't think of a couple that was more deserving than Pete and Lori. If there are no additional reports or announcements, as if we hadn't had enough of the wastewater treatment plant tonight, Bob, we're going to put you back, you're on deck again to give us an update specifically regarding odor complaints and inquiries.
It's been really quiet. We've had one complaint since the last meeting. And any questions? I mean,
No, just curious, how many complaints did we have? I was going to ask that question at the last meeting, and I forgot to, for the.
about 16.
16 for the study?
Yeah.
I saw the list on there, but I thought maybe there was some more.
And just plug one more time, I'm glad Mr. Beerbaum brought that up. People are still encouraged to contact Tetra Tech if they'd like to talk to the representative, correct?
Correct.
And will that extend until the completion of the Phase 2 analysis?
I believe it extends to that portion of the contract is expired. They got 40 hours of time for odor surveys.
Okay, very good. 16's not bad, but I'm sure there are other people who would like to share a perspective, and we would welcome that.
That reminds me.
Please.
Do we need to vote on the extension, or are we all set on the contract?
With Webster Environmental.
Did we, yeah.
Oh, no, yeah, you're all, City Council said this was just a kind of a preliminary of, because again, there's a lot of interest, as there should be, and wanting people, to know what's going on. So, yeah, this was in the original agreement, you may recall, the not to exceed included the Phase 2.
Yeah, and I just didn't know if we had to make a motion on Phase 2.
Yeah, yeah. The only addition was that they only had one meeting, was at the final, and I said that they needed to be here for tonight's meeting, so that there's an additional just one meeting charge, but I believe it was well worth having them here.
Thank you.
Indeed. Bob, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Moving on to the second to last item. Mr. Fortes, you hung with us all evening, and we appreciate that. And we are actually excited to receive an update on the sidewalk program.
Thank you. Tonight you had distributed a little summary of where the sidewalk program has been. The first bullet item there, 2006 through 2013, spent nearly $150,000 on sidewalk replacements and ADA ramp installations. 2013 is when we really began the discussion on sidewalks and improving the condition of our sidewalk network. We started out by performing a citywide condition survey. We hired Precision Concrete to perform that survey for us, and then additionally that year we spent another nearly $13,000 on sidewalk replacements. 2014, additional sidewalk replacements to the tune of $15,000. 2015, we stepped it up quite a bit, spending nearly $75,000 on sidewalk replacements. These are all city responsibility ones, either through trees, ADA ramp replacements, or replacements that were necessary due to other changes, like if we changed the grade of a street or something like that. 2015, we contracted again with Precision Concrete Cutting to do a citywide removal of basically trip hazards. During that process that started in the summer of 15 and then paused briefly during winter weather and then finished up spring of 16, 7,350 trip hazards were removed across the whole city. 2016, nearly 59,000 square feet of sidewalk and ramps were replaced or added as part of the Michigan Avenue project. That included new sidewalk from Mills down to the Saline River Bridge on the north side of the highway, and then sidewalk from Lewis to Curtis Park. There was sidewalk there, but it became a much larger pathway with this project. In addition to those replacements, there was another little over 1,100 square feet of sidewalk at various 13 locations throughout the city that we replaced. So now it's time for the next phase. Going forward, what we're going to do, I'll be shortly issuing an RFP for professional services for a consultant to kind of put this together and do the inspections and kind of the management of it. We just simply don't have enough internal staff at the moment to manage this because it's going to become very paperwork intensive. So we're going to be having this consultant prepare a construction RFP to address about $25,000 per year of city responsibility sidewalks, and then within those zones where we're attacking city responsibilities, we'll be noticing the private property owners that also have sidewalk responsibilities and giving them the option of joining in on this contract and enjoying our rates and our management of the project for them. But that creates a whole bunch of individual agreements with all these private property owners, and then a bunch of invoices after the project and collection process. So we need a little help doing that. Scott's staff has worked up the agreement language with the private property owners, and then this consultant that we'll be bringing on board will manage that project. So professional services RFP coming very shortly. They will develop the construction RFP, and we'll start construction. And then this will be an ongoing multi-year process. Currently, we have identified in FY17 $25,000, FY18 additional $25,000. These are a share of the Metro funds, the same funding source that we used for the cutting program, but we had a lot in the bank for the cutting program. Now we're kind of just going with our year-to-year payments and putting a portion of those towards sidewalks. In addition, in FY18, in the proposed budget, there's an additional $12,500 of sidewalk replacements for replacements outside of the program, spots that become urgent for whatever reason or another, so we have the flexibility to go and repair sidewalks that aren't in the program zones. So that is the plan.
Very good, appreciate the update. So RFP, you're thinking sometime will be on the council agenda for action in April?
Yes, yeah, I think the second meeting in April, we should be in a position to award the professional services.
Okay, very good. Mr. Kirby?
Just what quadrant or where are you going to start initially?
That's going to be one of the things that the consultant will determine. I'm in the process of compiling so when we had the cutting program, we had the survey, and then as they were doing the cutting, they collected additional data. I'm compiling that. We'll transfer that to the consultant, and then they'll do the mapping of it and grouping of the work and decide where we're going to start, try to get an efficient grouping of city responsibilities and then encompass, a certain amount of private responsibility.
And then there will be a formal appeal process in terms of, we'll identify, send it out to them, and if there's concerns about if they have questions about whether or not it's their responsibility or not.
Right, yeah. And there are always some that are questionable. It continues to surprise me how far away a tree root will go to raise a sidewalk, and sometimes you just can't tell that until you actually lift it up. So, yeah, there'll be a continuing review process.
Or you had a tree there 20 years ago and the city cut it down.
Yeah, that too.
Ms. McClellan?
This is only for existing sidewalks, correct?
Yes.
This is building new, like extending the sidewalk on the east side of town?
It has no relation to that. Yeah, this is repair of existing sidewalks.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Ms. Dillon?
So when you talk about invoicing, are we invoicing as they go? Or I thought we had talked about just adding it to their tax bill? Or is that part of the invoicing? Do they have the option of just paying up front versus?
Yeah, the paying up front is decidedly our preference because otherwise we end up floating that bill for 10 years, I think it is. And that's a bit of a burden. So the agreement, the language in the agreement where, if they want the city to manage the project and have our contractor do it and get our, presumably better rates, part of that agreement is waiving that option to have it go to taxes. Is that correct? I don't know if I'm saying that quite right. And I didn't prepare you for this at all tonight. Sorry about that. But So there's a process of, when a property owner owes the city some funds and then they don't pay it, there's a process for putting that on your taxes. And it's not the preferable way for us to do things, but there's been some case law with sidewalks, particularly whether or not you can assess them against a property. And that's the thing that the language that our attorneys came up with will allow us to do if they default on the agreement.
Okay, so but they're not paying in advance?
The intent is for the work to be done and them to pay it in full. That's what the agreement is. But then the language of this agreement gives us the option to place it on their taxes should they not pay it.
Okay, that's what, thank you.
Thanks.
Additional questions?
Clarifying that, so what does that mean? Then do we put an assessment fee and interest on that, or how does that play out? The only concern I have is that if somebody had to have a significant component of sidewalks replaced, say $4,000 or $5,000.
Yep.
In the past, we've always allowed special assessment districts, and like you said, it takes 10 years over, but it goes on to the assessment of the property. But I always thought there was also an interest associated with that.
That, I don't know that detail. Okay.
Yeah. My only concern is we're going to have that situation, and I want to have this happen, but for some people, $5,000 cash may be an issue. And if we can't give them the opportunity to also put it on their property as an assessment, I think we're not being as customer-friendly as we want to be.
Okay.
I would agree. I think that's a fair assessment, part of the plan.
Nice.
I mean, you're going to really, this is sort of a rhetorical question, but as you stated, we're going to really emphasize that if you participate in this program and it's proven that the city is not liable for the repair or the replacement, the homeowner or business owner is still leveraging the economies of scale by getting a great rate. And we really encourage them, if they are able to pay that amount up front.
Right.
But there are going to be some people who, as Mr. Yearboss said, simply are unable or incapable of doing that. Okay. Additional questions or comments? Jeff, thank you very much. Last but certainly not least, Mr. Campbell, do you want to provide a brief update on the fiscal year 17 strategic plan?
I thought I'd go through each one item. No, I'm just kidding.
I missed that.
I said I thought I could go through every line, just line by line.
Perfect, that'd be fantastic.
Logan is playing at 10:45.
All right, there we go. So, just like we've done in the past, this is the most up-to-date for the current strategic plan. Be happy to answer any questions. If anybody has anything.
Any questions?
I guess how does this strategic plan play in, well, I know it's for this fiscal year, but what's happening with our one for next year that we had with Kelly?
Yep, so that my plan is to give that to you all at the April 3rd meeting for your review. And so then you come back 2 weeks later, then we can discuss it in greater detail, if any changes or additions, deletions, that type of thing, like we've done in the past.
Is there anything on our strategic plan right now that you feel is going to be something that we can't attain this year? Significant, I mean?
Yeah.
There's some items on here, I think, yeah, it's going to take a bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, and some of these are ongoing, right?
Right.
So I think that's, for the most part, I think we're getting the lion's share of things. And sometimes we're gonna, for instance, the SAW grant, I mean, we've finally been awarded that, and that's a 3-year project. The non-motorized plan, that's in the process of, that should be done very quickly. The staff has been reviewing that, the final draft, so that should be coming shortly. I think, we continue to do the, reviewing of departments. So I think.
And at least goal 4, objective 3, I think you've accomplished tonight by getting that American Tower.
Oh, yeah.
moved along, so there's one to scratch off.
Yeah,
Good.
yep. So, again, we're plugging away.
Very good. All right, we'll expect a fiscal year 18 a preliminary plan to be presented then in our next council meeting. I want to go back real quick. I was thinking a little bit more about this. The Planning Commission meeting on Wednesday, the work meeting that begins at 6. If you are planning to attend that, why don't you send an email or let the clerk's office know? I want to make sure we just have enough food and we have places set up for them at the work meeting table, okay? Is there any other business? No, I'm skipping ahead, excuse me. If there's nothing else to be brought up under the discussion portion of the agenda, we come to public comments. Under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward at this time, make comment or question to City Council. This public comment period will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. Please.
I know it's getting late, so I'll be just as quick as I can.
Oh, I forgot that.
Yes, sir.
My name is Jim Peters. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Historic Society. And we're passing out the annual report tonight, so you can read it at your leisure. But while I'm here, I'd just like to take a moment to thank the city for allowing us, the Historic Society, to be stewards of the 2 museums, the Depot and Runford's Farm. It's a job that we take a lot of pride in and we enjoy. This year, in 2017, will be our Society's 30th anniversary. Last year, our membership grew to almost 220 members. We logged 7,209 hours volunteer time. The Farm Garden was awarded the 2016 Green Thumb Award, all the while producing over 3,000 pounds of produce, all of what went to food gatherers of Washtenaw County. Thanks to council member Janet Dillon and her family, our farm fence received a brand-new coat of fresh white paint, and there was a lot of fence to paint, too. It was quite a job, so thank you very much for that. Yeah. Last year, we hosted a 4th of July celebration at Depot. We intend to do the same again this year. The US 12 yard sale drew over 3,000 customers, and we've become one of the largest stops on the US 12 route for that event. Our Christmas on the Farm event went very well this year, despite the rough weather. We had a building condition assessment report generated by Quinn Evans, and this will help us complete some future grant efforts. We continued our program of educational talks at the library and had 6 different lectures for 2016. And down at Salt Springs Archaeological Survey, we logged 736 volunteer hours. So please take a look at that annual report, if you will. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me or any member of the Historic Society. All right, thank you very much.
Jim, thank you very much. Appreciate the update, and thank you to the Historic Society. I hope you'll convey our appreciation to that entire group. And speaking specifically of you as a member, we look forward to celebrating with you later this week as the recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award. Yeah, thank you. Mr. Roth, please.
Since you called me by name, I don't think you need to give my name out again, but I live on 186 Anwood Court, 150 feet from the secondary digester at the sewage treatment plant. I want to thank you for all your questions and input that you had tonight with the people doing the study, and I appreciate many of your questions that you have. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to respond, question for that section because I was out talking to Mr. Ross in regards to what he would recommend and so on, and some of my concerns that I've had. So the question, I'd say I certainly appreciate it, and Heidi appreciate far as the idea of getting started on a plan, and I think that was a very good suggestion because getting started in April 2018 just to maybe start the construction of this stuff, it's going to be 2019 before this ever happens. And I've been after this odor problem for years and years. And I appreciate the question that Councilman Gearball asked, why wasn't this approached with the last reconstruction and stuff that we had at the sewage plant? It seems to be that this problem was put off. I certainly appreciate all the efforts of your council at this time to address this problem. So do it as quickly as possible. It appears to be that if you look at, as far as thinking about the presentation he gave, the bacteria one, option number 2, appears to be the one that he stressed that would be the most effective way, and even toward the future for really clearing up the odors and that type of stuff. So I appreciate what you've been doing. I still would like this to be expedited, like several of you questioned and wanted to see. I don't know what we're going to get other than other information, data that we're going to get for during the summer. And we do know the odor is there. We know where it's coming from. And I gave you a report that I put together after my visit to the sewage plant this past fall, and I was bingo on just about every one of these sources. So this company came up with a remedy for it. You know what it is. And I was encourage you, if this finance, how are you going to finance it? Start working on the plans so this is truly expedited and not put off so much longer. And you see the waves and where the stuff is at. It's a real problem. It has been a real problem. And far as the present system, I just don't understand why it wasn't addressed before. So it's a great question. And it's been brought up many, many times. And I got a whole document for it. So I appreciate your efforts on that. Thanks a lot.
Perfect timing. Thank you, Mr. Roth. We appreciate you being here. Any additional citizen comments? No, then please note our upcoming meetings are on the 3rd and 17th. We will have a work meeting at both beginning at 6 p.m. to discuss our general operating budget, and then a regular meeting to follow at 7:30. There are no absences, so the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn at 10:40 p.m.
So moved.
Moved by Councilwoman Mitchell. Is there a second?
Oh.
You want a second, Ms. Dillon?
I think Mr. Cito actually beat
Oh,
me
okay.
to it.
I'll let CO be the second. Been properly moved by Mitchell, seconded by CO to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.